When a broke nurse gets bumped from her life-changing flight, she never expects the mysterious stranger who buys her a first-class ticket to be hiding a billion-dollar secret. But at 30,000 feet, everything changes when a passenger collapses. And Claire's quick actions reveal she's not just another woman struggling to survive. She's exactly what this broken billionaire and his lonely son have been searching for. But can their connection survive the scandal that's about to destroy both their futures? Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The fluorescent lights at JFK's Terminal 5 had a particular quality at 11:47 p.m., harsh enough to prevent sleep, dim enough to make everything look slightly unreal. Claire Holloway sat in a cracked plastic chair near Gate B12, her duffel bag wedged between her ankles, watching her entire future collapse in real time. "I understand you're upset, ma'am, but the flight is overbooked and you were the last to check in." The gate agent's voice had that practiced exhaustion of someone who'd delivered bad news 1,000 times that week alone. "We can get you on the 6 a.m. flight tomorrow, plus a hotel voucher. I have an interview at 9 a.m. in Los Angeles." Claire's voice came out steadier than she felt. "It's for Cedar Pacific Children's Hospital. I've been waiting 3 years for this opportunity." The agent's fingers paused over her keyboard. For just a second, Claire saw something like sympathy cross her face. Then it disappeared behind professional detachment. "I'm very sorry. The voucher includes breakfast, and we'll upgrade you to Economy Plus on the morning flight." Economy Plus? Like an extra 3 inches of legroom would make up for losing the job she'd sacrificed everything to pursue. Claire took the voucher with numb fingers. $50 for a hotel near the airport. She did the math instantly, the kind of automatic calculation poverty had burned into her brain years ago. Taxi to hotel, $15 minimum. Taxi back in the morning, another $15. That left $20 for a room that probably cost $80, which meant she'd have to cover the difference from the $112 currently sitting in her checking account. The same $112 that needed to last until her first paycheck. If she even got the job now. She handed the voucher back. "I'll stay here." "Ma'am, you can't." "I can." "Thank you for your help." Claire walked away before the agent could argue, before the tears burning behind her eyes could betray her. She found a spot in a quiet corner near the windows where the cleaning crews hadn't reached yet. Someone had left a newspaper on the next chair. She pulled it over as a makeshift blanket against the aggressive air conditioning and settled in. This wasn't her first time sleeping in an airport. It wouldn't be her last. Through the massive windows, she could see planes taking off into the black sky, their lights disappearing into clouds. Somewhere out there was Los Angeles, Cedar Pacific. The job that would finally prove that 10 years of night shifts and weekend classes and choosing textbooks over groceries had meant something. Her phone buzzed. "Mom, how was the flight, honey?" Claire stared at the message. Her mother didn't know the flight cost had taken the last of her savings. Didn't know that Claire had chosen this interview over paying this month's electricity bill at the tiny apartment in Dayton. Didn't know that if this didn't work out, Claire would be back to square one, 30 years old, buried in debt, watching her dreams get smaller every year. "Good. Landing soon. Love you." She turned off her phone to save battery and closed her eyes. Across the terminal, Damian Cross was trying to remember why he'd thought flying commercial was a good idea. His assistant had suggested it. "You're always complaining that you never see how normal people live anymore," Sarah had said, in that pointed way she had of calling him out without quite being insubordinate. Maybe try being normal for once. So here he was, Gate B16, wearing jeans that cost more than most people's monthly rent and a plain black t-shirt, trying to blend in. It wasn't working. The gate agent had recognized him immediately, upgraded him without asking, and was currently shooting nervous glances his direction every 30 seconds. He should have taken the jet. "Daddy, I'm hungry." Damien looked down at his son. Oliver was 6 years old, dark-haired like his mother had been, with the kind of serious gray eyes that always made strangers ask if he was okay. He was okay. Mostly. As okay as a kid could be when his mom died before he was old enough to remember her properly. "We'll eat on the plane, buddy, but I'm hungry now." 30 minutes. Oliver's face did that thing where it started to crumple, and Damien felt the familiar spike of panic. He could negotiate billion-dollar contracts without breaking a sweat, but the prospect of his son crying in public made him want to flee the country. Tell you what, Damien said quickly. Let's walk around, see if we can find something interesting. They walked, past luxury shops that stayed open despite having no customers, past a bar where businessmen drank overpriced bourbon and complained about delays, past a bookstore with bright covers and promises of escape. That's when Oliver stopped. Dad, that lady's sleeping in a chair. Damien followed his son's gaze. In a dim corner near the windows, a woman sat with her eyes closed, a newspaper pulled up to her chin. She looked young, early 30s maybe, with dark blonde hair pulled into a practical ponytail. Her clothes were clean but worn, jeans with a patch on one knee, a sweater with pulled threads at the cuffs. Her face had the kind of exhaustion that went deeper than one missed night of sleep. Some people can't afford hotels, Ollie. Why not? Because the world isn't fair. Because some people start with nothing and spend their whole lives fighting just to stay afloat. Because privilege is invisible to those who have it. It's complicated. He tried to steer Oliver away, but his son had inherited his mother's stubborn streak. Is she okay? She's fine. Come on. But Damien found himself looking back. The woman hadn't moved. The terminal was getting louder as more delayed passengers accumulated, but she sat perfectly still, like she'd learned how to disappear in plain sight. Something about that stillness bothered him. Most people would have been on their phones, or eating, or complaining to anyone who'd listen. The other passengers from the same oversold flight were currently staging what looked like a minor revolt at the gate desk, their voices carrying across the terminal. This woman just sat there, accepting it. Mr. Cross? The gate agent from B-16 had appeared at his elbow. We're ready to board first class whenever you are. Thanks. Give us a minute. He watched the woman for another few seconds, then made a decision he'd spend the next year trying to understand. Wait here, Ollie. Damien walked back to the angry crowd at gate B12, caught the overwhelmed gate agent's eye. Excuse me, the flight to LA, you're oversold? Yes, sir, I'm sorry. We're doing everything we can. She stopped. Recognition dawned. Oh, Mr. Cross, Yes, we're oversold by one passenger. How many seats are left in first class? 2, but I'd like to purchase both tickets. One for me, one for... He glanced at Claire's direction. One for the woman sitting by the window over there. The agent's professional mask slipped. You want to buy a stranger a first-class ticket to LA? Is that a problem? No, sir, it's just... Then let's make it happen. Quietly. 3 minutes later, ticket in hand, Damien walked over to the woman in the corner. Up close, he could see the details poverty left behind. The shoes were soled so many times the original material barely showed through. The duffel bag that had been repaired with duct tape. The careful way she'd positioned herself to take up minimal space, like she'd learned not to be a bother. Excuse me. Her eyes opened. They were blue-gray and cautious in a way that told him she'd learned to distrust kindness. I don't have any money, she said immediately. I'm not asking for money. This is going to sound strange. Then maybe don't say it. Fair enough. Damien sat down in the chair next to her, uninvited. She stiffened but didn't tell him to leave. I overheard what happened at the desk. With your flight. Congratulations, so did everyone else. It's not exactly uncommon. I bought 2 first-class tickets on the same flight. I'd like you to have one. The silence that followed was profound. Then Claire laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Let me guess, you're a nice guy who just wants to help, and I shouldn't be so suspicious. And what kind of person turns down a free ticket? Actually, I was expecting you to tell me to go to hell. That caught her off guard. She studied him properly for the first time. Damien knew what she was seeing. Expensive but understated clothes, a watch that cost more than a car, the kind of confidence that came from never having to check a price tag. What do you want? She asked finally. Nothing. Everyone wants something. Not from you. Then why? Damien glanced back at Oliver, who was watching them with undisguised interest from a safe distance. My son asked if you were okay. I couldn't give him a good answer. This way I can. Claire's expression didn't change. So this is about making yourself feel better. Probably. The honesty seemed to surprise her more than the ticket offer had. Where's the catch? She asked. No catch. There's always a catch. Not this time. You don't even know my name. Don't need to. Claire stood up abruptly. For a second, Damien thought she was going to walk away. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked him dead in the eye. I don't do charity. It's not charity. It's two people going to the same place at the same time. One of them happens to have an extra ticket. That's the definition of charity. Then call it something else. Like what? Human decency. From a stranger. Best kind. No strings attached. She wanted to say no. He could see it in every tense line of her body. Pride was the last thing people had when everything else was gone, and he was asking her to swallow it. Why should I trust you? She asked quietly. You shouldn't. You don't know me. For all you know, I could be dangerous. Are you? Not to you. That's not reassuring. It's the truth. Claire looked at the ticket in his hand, then at her duffel bag, then at the gate, where the last few passengers were boarding. What's your name? She asked. Damien. She didn't offer hers in return. Another test. If I take this ticket, we're even. You don't get to hold it over me. You don't get to... I expect nothing in return, Damien interrupted. Not gratitude, not conversation, not even basic politeness. You take the ticket, you get on the plane, you never think about me again. That's the deal. That's not how the world works. It's how this works. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. Claire took the ticket. Her hands were shaking. The first-class cabin was a world Claire had only seen in movies. Leather seats that reclined into beds. Flight attendants who offered champagne before takeoff. Passengers who acted like flying across the country was barely more complicated than taking a bus. She felt like an imposter. Damien sat across the aisle with his son, who had immediately claimed the window seat and pressed his face against the glass. Neither of them looked at her, keeping his promise about expectations. A flight attendant appeared. Can I get you anything before we take off? Champagne? Water? Juice? Water, please. Still or sparkling? Claire blinked. Still. The attendant returned with water in an actual glass, not a plastic cup. Claire took it carefully, hyper-aware of every movement. Don't spill. Don't break anything. Don't do anything that marks you as someone who doesn't belong here. The plane began to taxi. Through the window, she could see JFK falling away behind them, the city lights spreading out like spilled diamonds. Somewhere down there was the life she'd left behind. The apartment with secondhand furniture. The job at Mercy County Hospital where she'd worked doubles until her feet bled. The future she'd been so desperate to escape. And somewhere ahead was Los Angeles, the interview, the possibility of something better. If she made it in time. She pulled out her phone, checked the flight time. 5.5 hours. Landing at 3 a.m. Pacific time. She'd have exactly 6 hours to get to the hospital, shower somehow, change clothes, and show up looking like someone worth hiring. The math was going to be tight. First time in first class? Claire's head snapped up. Damien was looking at her now, his expression unreadable. That obvious? She asked. You haven't touched the champagne. I don't drink. Smart. Can't afford to make mistakes. The words came out harder than she'd intended. Damien didn't flinch. The interview, he said. In L.A. What's it for? Why do you care? I don't. Making conversation. You said I didn't have to be polite. You don't. But Claire was tired of being suspicious, tired of treating every interaction like a threat. This man had bought her a ticket expecting nothing. The least she could do was answer a simple question. Cedar Pacific Children's Hospital, she said. Pediatric nurse position. It's a good job. You're a nurse? For 7 years, but this would be different. Better hospital, better pay, better everything. Where are you coming from? Dayton, Ohio. Long way. Yeah. Family there? My mom. Damien nodded slowly. And you're leaving her. It wasn't a question. Claire felt the familiar stab of guilt that came every time she thought about the plane tickets, the interview, the future that required her to leave the only person who'd ever been there for her. She told me to go, Claire said. Said she didn't raise me to play it safe. Sounds like a good mom. The best. Across the aisle, Oliver had fallen asleep against the window, his mouth slightly open. Damien reached over and adjusted the blanket around his shoulders with the automatic care of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Your son? Claire asked, though it was obvious. Yeah, Oliver. He looks like you. Poor kid. It was said lightly, but Claire heard something underneath it. Grief, maybe. Or exhaustion. How old? 6. Just turned. That's a good age. Is it? They still think you know everything. Give it a few years. Damien smiled. It changed his whole face. Made him look younger. Less guarded. You have kids? He asked. No, but I work pediatrics. Close enough. Not really. No, Claire admitted. Not really. The seatbelt sign turned off. The flight attendants began their service. Claire accepted a warm towel, had no idea what to do with it, watched Damien wipe his hands and copied him. Can I ask you something? Damien said after a moment. You're going to anyway. Why'd you stay at the airport? Most people would have taken the hotel voucher. Claire looked down at her water glass. The ice had melted, leaving rings of condensation on the leather armrest. Money, she said simply. The voucher doesn't cover the full cost. Taxi, room difference. I couldn't afford it. But you can afford to fly to LA for an interview? Barely. I've been saving for 3 years. This is everything. The weight of that admission hung in the air between them. And if you miss it, Damien asked quietly, then I go home. Back to Dayton. Back to Mercy County Hospital. Back to wondering what if. That's a lot of pressure for one interview. Yeah. You must really want this job. Claire met his eyes. I don't want to be 35 and still choosing between groceries and textbooks. I don't want to be 40 and burned out from double shifts. I don't want to be 50 and wondering why I never tried. So you try. So I try. Damien nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you'll get it. You don't know anything about me. I know you didn't take the easy way out tonight. That counts for something. In job interviews? In life. The flight attendant returned with menus. Actual menus, like this was a restaurant and not a metal tube hurtling through the sky at 500 miles per hour. Claire stared at the options. Seared duck breast, herb-crusted salmon, vegetarian risotto. No prices listed because in first class, apparently, money was too vulgar to mention. I'll have the chicken, she said, choosing the safest option. Excellent choice, the attendant said with professional warmth. And for you, Mr. Cross? Mr. Cross. Claire's head turned slowly toward Damien. He was very carefully not looking at her. The salmon, he said. Thanks, Jennifer. The attendant left. The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Cross, Claire said slowly. It's just a name. Damien Cross? Still just a name. The Damien Cross? Cross Medical Logistics? Now he looked at her. You know the company? Every nurse in America knows the company. You basically control half the medical supply chain on the East Coast. That's an exaggeration. Not by much. Claire sat back in her seat, her mind racing. Cross Medical Logistics. She'd seen their trucks at Mercy County Hospital, their logos on supply boxes, their name on grant announcements. They were huge. And the man who owned it had just bought her a first-class ticket to Los Angeles. Oh, God, she said. What? Cedar Pacific. You probably do business with them. We do business with most major hospitals. People are going to think that you know someone with connections? Good. Use it. I can't use it? That's cheating. It's networking. It's not fair to the other candidates. Damien's expression hardened slightly. You know what's not fair? Being bumped from a flight because you couldn't afford to check in early. Having to sleep in airports because hotel vouchers don't cover the real cost. Missing opportunities because the system is designed to keep people exactly where they are. So your solution is to give me an unfair advantage? My solution is to level the playing field. By putting your thumb on the scale. I'm not putting my thumb anywhere. You're going to that interview on your own merit. This ticket doesn't change your qualifications. It changes the optics. Only if people know about it. Claire shook her head. Someone always knows. Someone always talks. Then let them talk. You're still going to show up and prove you deserve that job. And if I don't get it, then it wasn't meant to be. Easy for you to say. You're not the one gambling everything on one interview. Damien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its edge. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed. I'm not trying to make this harder. Then why did you buy me the ticket? Honestly? Preferably. Because my son asked if you were okay, and I wanted to be able to tell him yes. Because I have more money than I'll ever spend, and you needed help. Because sometimes the world is brutal and unfair, and the only thing we can do is be less brutal to each other. Take your pick. Claire studied him. He looked tired, not physically. First-class seats were comfortable enough, but tired in the way she recognized from mirrors. The kind that came from carrying weight no one else could see. How long have you been doing this? She asked. The charity thing. It's not charity. Fine. The helping strangers thing. First time, actually. Seriously? I usually take my private jet. Avoid the whole mess. So why today? My assistant suggested I try being normal for once. How's that working out? Terribly. Would not recommend. Claire surprised herself by laughing. It felt strange after the tension of the past hour. Their food arrived. The chicken turned out to be coq au vin, served with roasted vegetables and garlic mashed potatoes that probably had more butter than Claire ate in a month. She took small bites, trying to make it last, hyper-aware that this might be the best meal she'd eat for a very long time. Across the aisle, Damien cut up salmon for Oliver, who'd woken up hungry and grumpy. The kid ate mechanically, still half asleep, while his father murmured something too quiet for Claire to hear. It was surprisingly domestic, unexpected from a billionaire businessman. Can I ask you something? Claire said. Damien looked up. Sure. Why are you flying commercial? Really? He set down his fork. Same reason you are, probably. Running from something. I'm running towards something. Maybe I am too. Toward what? Haven't figured that out yet. Oliver finished eating and immediately curled back up against the window. Damien pulled the blanket higher, his hand lingering on his son's shoulder. He's a good kid, Claire observed. He is. Too good sometimes. There's no such thing. There is when they've had to be. When they've had to grow up faster than they should. Claire heard the pain in those words. His mom died 4 years ago. I'm sorry. Me too. Was it? She stopped. Too personal. Cancer, Damien said quietly, started as stage 2 breast cancer. By the time they caught it properly, it had metastasized. She fought for 18 months. Oliver was 2 when she died. He doesn't remember her. That's awful. Yeah. Do you talk about her? With him? Every day. Show him pictures, tell him stories, but it's not the same as having her. No, it wouldn't be. They sat in silence for a while. The plane hummed around them, steady and constant. Most of the other first-class passengers had reclined their seats and were sleeping. The cabin lights had been dimmed to a soft glow. Can I ask you something now? Damien said. Fair's fair. Your mom, the one in Dayton, is she sick? Claire's chest tightened. How did you... The way you talked about her, like you're waiting for bad news. She should have been annoyed at the perception. Instead, she was just tired. Diabetes, she said. Type 2. She's managing it, but there are complications. She doesn't tell me everything, but I can tell. The phone calls are getting shorter. She's more tired. And you're leaving. She told me to. That doesn't make it easier. No. Does she know how bad your situation is? Financially? God, no. She'd never let me come if she knew. She still thinks I'm... Claire gestured vaguely. Doing fine. Are you? Do I look like I'm doing fine? You look like someone who's been fighting too long without backup. The accuracy of that statement hit harder than Claire expected. She turned to look out the window, blinking back sudden tears. Sorry, Damien said. Overstepped. It's fine. It's not. I shouldn't have... I said it's fine. But her voice cracked on the last word, betraying her. Damien reached across the aisle. Didn't touch her, just held out a packet of tissues he'd pulled from somewhere. Claire took them, wiped her eyes quickly, furious at herself for breaking down in front of a stranger. I'm not... You're exhausted, Damien said simply. You're allowed to be human. Not when I have an interview in 6 hours. Especially then. Claire blew her nose inelegantly, shoved the tissues in her pocket, tried to pull herself back together. I'm fine now, she said. Okay. Really, I'm fine. I believe you. He didn't, but he had the grace not to push. The flight attendant appeared again. Can I get either of you anything else? Coffee? Dessert? No, thank you, Claire said. Mr. Cross? I'm good, thanks, Jennifer. After she left, Damien turned back to Claire. The hospital, he said. Cedar Pacific. Do you know anything about them beyond the job posting? I've done research. Good trauma center, strong pediatric department. They pioneered a program for underserved communities that I really admire. They also have one of the highest staff retention rates in California. People don't leave once they're in. I know. That's why I want it so badly. Damien nodded slowly. When's your interview? 9 a.m. That's tight. I'll make it work. Where are you staying? Haven't figured that out yet. Claire, I'll figure it out, she repeated, more firmly this time. There are hotels near LAX. Some of them have day rates. I know. And if you need, I don't. Damien raised his hands in surrender. Okay, just trying to help. You've helped enough. She didn't mean it to sound ungrateful, but the thought of accepting more charity, more handouts, more evidence that she couldn't make it on her own, it was too much. Damien seemed to understand. He turned back to his son, adjusting Oliver's blanket again, and didn't push further. Claire reclined her seat, tried to sleep, failed completely. Her mind kept spinning. The interview questions she'd practiced, the answers she'd memorized, the outfit folded carefully in her duffel bag, a gray suit from a thrift store that she'd had altered to fit, professional but not expensive enough to make her look like she was trying too hard. She thought about her mom, about the phone call she'd have to make if this didn't work out. She thought about Damien Cross, billionaire businessman, sitting across the aisle with his sleeping son, looking almost normal except for the watch that cost more than she made in a year. She thought about the ticket, the unexpected kindness, the way it felt both like salvation and like a trap. Around 2 a.m. Pacific time, things started to go wrong. It began with a light above one of the other first-class passengers blinking on, then a call button, then a flight attendant rushing past with worry creasing her face. Claire sat up. 3 rows ahead, an elderly woman was slumped in her seat, her husband frantically trying to wake her. The flight attendant's voice carried back. Ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear me? No response. Is there a doctor on board? The attendant called out. Silence. Claire was moving before she'd consciously decided to. Years of emergency room instincts took over. She reached the woman in seconds, dropped to her knees beside the seat. I'm a nurse. What happened? The husband's face was white with panic. She was fine, and then she got confused, and now she won't wake up. Claire checked the woman's pulse. Rapid, skin clammy, breathing shallow. Does she have diabetes? Claire asked sharply. Yes, type 1. She took her insulin before the flight. How much? Her regular dose, same as always. Did she eat? The husband's face crumbled. No, she said she wasn't hungry. Oh, God, I didn't think. Hypoglycemia, classic insulin reaction without enough food to balance it. I need glucose, Claire said to the flight attendant. Orange juice, soda, anything with sugar. Now! The attendant ran. Claire tilted the woman's head back, checked her airway. Still breathing, pulse still there. But she was deeply unconscious, which meant her blood sugar had dropped dangerously low. Come on, Claire murmured. Stay with me. The attendant returned with 3 cans of Coca-Cola. Claire popped one open, tried to get the woman to drink. Unconscious patients couldn't swallow safely, risk of aspiration, but she could rub sugar water on the gums, let it absorb slowly. She worked fast, poured soda onto her fingers, rubbed it along the inside of the woman's cheek. Waited. Repeated. The husband was crying quietly. Other passengers had woken up and were watching with frightened faces. Is she going to be okay? Someone asked. She will be, Claire said with more confidence than she felt. Just need to get her blood sugar up. More soda on the gums, more waiting. Then, finally, a flutter of eyelids. That's it, Claire said softly. Come back. The woman's eyes opened, unfocused at first, then gradually clearing. What? Where? You're on a plane, Claire said. Your blood sugar dropped. Do you understand? A weak nod. I need you to drink this. Can you do that? Another nod. Claire helped her sit up slowly, brought the Coke to her lips. The woman drank in small sips, her hands shaking. Color started returning to her face. "There we go," Claire said. "That's better." The flight attendant had returned with the medical kit. Claire checked the woman's blood sugar with the glucometer inside. 54. Dangerously low, but climbing. "Keep drinking," she told the woman. "Slowly. We'll check again in 15 minutes. The husband grabbed Claire's hand. Thank you so much. I was so scared. She's going to be fine, but she needs to eat something when we land. Something with protein and fat, not just carbs. Okay?" "Okay. Yes. Thank you." Claire stood up, suddenly aware of how many people were staring at her. The entire first-class cabin had witnessed the whole thing, including Damien. He was standing in the aisle, Oliver still asleep behind him, looking at Claire with an expression she couldn't quite read. "That was," he started. "Just doing my job," Claire said quickly. "That wasn't your job. You're not on duty." "Doesn't matter." She walked back to her seat, heart still pounding with adrenaline. The flight attendant followed. "Ma'am, thank you so much. We're going to note this in our report. Can I get your name and contact information?" "Claire Holloway, but really, it's not necessary." "It absolutely is. You may have saved that woman's life." "I just gave her some soda." "You knew what was wrong. You knew what to do. Most people would have panicked." Claire shrugged uncomfortably. "I've seen it before. Lots of times." The attendant finished writing down her information and went back to check on the patient. Claire slumped into her seat, suddenly exhausted. Damien sat down in the seat next to her, uninvited again. "Don't," Claire said. "Don't what?" "Whatever you're about to say." "I was just going to ask if you're okay." "I'm fine." "You're shaking." She was. Claire pressed her hands together, trying to still them. "Adrenaline," she said. "It'll pass." "You were incredible." "I was competent." "There's a difference." "Most people wouldn't know what to do." "Most people aren't nurses." "Most nurses wouldn't have moved that fast." Claire turned to look at him. "What do you want me to say? That I'm some kind of hero? I'm not. I just did what anyone with my training would do." "You did more than that." "Because I had to. Because if I didn't, she might have died." "Exactly. So stop making it sound noble. It was just necessary." Damien was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're wrong." "About what?" "About it not being noble. Necessity and nobility aren't mutually exclusive." Claire didn't have an answer for that. They sat in silence as the plane continued its path across the dark country. Below them, somewhere, was Nebraska, or Kansas, or some other flat state that looked like nothing from 35,000 feet. "The interview," Damien said finally. "You're going to nail it." "You don't know that." "I do, actually. Because anyone who can stay that calm in an emergency, who can think that clearly under pressure, Cedar Pacific would be lucky to have you." "You're biased." "I'm observant." "You've known me for 3 hours." "Sometimes that's enough." Claire shook her head, but she was almost smiling. "You're very strange, you know that." "I've been told." "Most billionaires don't fly commercial and buy tickets for strangers. Most billionaires are boring. And you're not?" "I'm trying not to be." The flight attendant announced they'd be landing in 40 minutes. Claire's stomach clenched. 40 minutes until Los Angeles. Until reality. Until she had to prove she belonged. "Hey," Damien said quietly. "Yeah?" "Whatever happens tomorrow, today, you should be proud. Of all of it. Getting this far took strength most people don't have. If I don't get the job, the strength doesn't matter." "Yes, it does. It always matters." Claire wanted to believe him, but belief was a luxury she'd stopped being able to afford years ago. The plane began its descent. LAX at 3 in the morning had the surreal quality of a place caught between worlds. Too late for red-eyes. Too early for the morning rush. The terminals echoed with the footsteps of cleaning crews and the occasional lost traveler dragging luggage across polished floors. Claire stood at baggage claim with her duffel bag already in hand, carry-on only because checked bags cost money, and tried to figure out her next move. She had 6 hours until the interview. 6 hours to find somewhere to shower, change, and transform herself from a woman who'd spent the night on a plane into someone Cedar Pacific would want to hire. The math wasn't adding up. "Claire." She turned. Damien was walking toward her with Oliver half asleep on his shoulder, the kid's arms wrapped loosely around his father's neck. "Hey," she said. "You got a ride arranged?" Working on it? That's not an answer. It's the answer you're getting. Damien shifted Oliver's weight slightly. The kid mumbled something incoherent and burrowed deeper against his father's shoulder. There's a hotel near the hospital, Damien said. The Westwood Grand. They have day rates. You could get a room for a few hours, shower, rest. I can't afford the Westwood Grand. Then let me... No. Claire. I said no. She softened her tone slightly. You bought me a plane ticket. That was already too much. I'm not taking anything else. So what's your plan? There's a 24-hour gym near LAX. I saw it on Google Maps. $30 day pass, includes showers. Damien stared at her. You're going to shower at a gym before the most important interview of your life. Unless you've got a better idea that doesn't involve charity. It's not charity, it is. And I appreciate it, really, but I can't... She stopped, trying to find words that wouldn't sound ungrateful. I need to do this myself. Do you understand? Damien looked like he wanted to argue. Then Oliver stirred, mumbling, Dad, I'm tired, and the fight went out of him. Yeah, he said quietly. I understand. Thank you for the ticket, really. I wouldn't have made it without you. Good luck with the interview. Thanks. They stood there awkwardly for another few seconds. Then Damien nodded once and turned away, heading for the exit where a black car was already waiting at the curb. Driver in a suit. Probably drove him everywhere. Claire watched them go, then pulled out her phone and called a lift. The gym was exactly what she'd expected. Fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant and sweat, motivational posters on the walls. The night clerk barely looked up when she paid for the day pass in cash. The women's locker room was empty except for one woman in business clothes who looked like she'd had the same idea. They exchanged tired nods of solidarity and went about their business in silence. Claire showered quickly, letting the hot water wash away the airport grime and airplane recycled air. She washed her hair twice, used the cheap soap dispenser on the wall, and tried not to think about how surreal this entire situation was. Less than 12 hours ago, she'd been in Dayton. Now she was showering in a Los Angeles gym at 4 in the morning, preparing to interview for a job that could change her entire life. She dressed carefully in one of the bathroom stalls. The gray suit still looked good. The alterations had been worth every penny she couldn't afford to spend. White blouse, ironed at home and packed flat. Black flats that she'd polished until they almost looked new. Hair pulled back in a simple bun. Minimal makeup. She'd never been good at anything fancy anyway. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone professional, competent, like she belonged. The illusion was perfect as long as nobody looked too close. She had 4 hours to kill. Claire found a 24-hour diner 2 blocks from the hospital and ordered coffee and toast, making it last as long as possible. The waitress refilled her cup without asking, bless her. At 8:30, she walked to Cedar Pacific. The hospital was bigger than she'd imagined. Modern glass and steel, 7 stories tall, with a children's wing painted in cheerful colors. The lobby had natural light pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows and a fountain that probably cost more than she made in 5 years. Claire checked in at the front desk. The receptionist was professionally pleasant and directed her to the 3rd floor, HR department. They're running a few minutes behind, the woman said. You can wait in the lounge. Someone will call you. The lounge was nice. Comfortable chairs, current magazines, water and coffee available. Claire took water, sat down, and tried to calm her racing heart. This was it. Other candidates were already waiting. A woman in her 40s with a confident posture and designer bag. A younger man, mid-20s, who kept checking his phone nervously. They all looked qualified. They all looked like they belonged here. Claire gripped her water bottle tighter. At 8:50, the HR director appeared. Professional suit, warm smile, clipboard in hand. Claire Holloway? Claire stood. That's me? I'm Sandra Reeves. Welcome to Cedar Pacific, if you'll follow me. They walked down a hallway lined with photos of smiling children and grateful families. Through windows, Claire could see the pediatric ward. Colorful rooms, nurses moving efficiently, the organized chaos she knew so well. Sandra led her into a conference room where 3 people were already waiting. 2 women, 1 man, all in professional attire with papers spread out in front of them. Claire, this is our interview committee. Dr. Rachel Chen, head of pediatrics. James Morrison, our nursing director. And you've met me. I handle HR. Please, have a seat. Claire sat, folded her hands in her lap, smiled professionally. Dr. Chen spoke first. Thank you for coming all the way from Ohio. I understand you flew in this morning. Last night, actually, red-eye flight. That's quite a journey for an interview. This position is worth it, Dr. Chen smiled. Tell us why. Claire had practiced this answer 100 times. She talked about Cedar Pacific's reputation, their innovative programs, their commitment to underserved communities. She talked about her own experience at Mercy County Hospital, the challenges of rural healthcare, what she could bring to their team. She was hitting all the right notes. She could see it in their faces. Interest, approval, cautious optimism. Then James Morrison opened a folder and pulled out a photograph. Ms. Holloway, before we continue, I need to ask you about something that came to our attention this morning. Claire's stomach dropped. He slid the photo across the table. It showed her and Damien at JFK, walking through the jet bridge. Someone had taken it from behind, but they were clearly identifiable. The timestamp said 11:58 p.m. Can you explain this? Morrison asked. Claire picked up the photo with steady hands. That's me and another passenger for my flight to Los Angeles. I'm not sure what you're asking. Dr. Chen leaned forward. The other passenger is Damien Cross, owner of Cross Medical Logistics, one of our largest suppliers. I didn't know that when the photo was taken. But you know it now. Yes. Sandra Reeves spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. Claire, you have to understand how this looks. Mr. Cross has significant business relationships with this hospital. Some of our board members have been asking questions about whether his personal connections influenced our hiring process. They didn't. You're saying you don't know Mr. Cross? I met him last night at the airport. We were on the same flight. Morrison didn't look convinced. And he just happened to give you a ride to the hospital? No, I took a lift from LAX. Mr. Cross went his own way. We haven't spoken since we landed. But you did speak on the flight. Briefly, yes. About what? Claire felt heat rising in her face. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. Exactly why she'd wanted to refuse Damien's help in the first place. He offered me a first-class ticket, she said evenly. My original flight had been oversold. I was bumped. He had an extra seat and offered it to me. That's the entire story. Why would he do that? Dr. Chen asked. You'd have to ask him. We're asking you. I don't know. Kindness? Generosity? Does it matter? It matters if it creates the appearance of impropriety. Claire set the photo down carefully. With respect, I flew 3,000 miles for this interview on my own money that I've been saving for 3 years. I've worked in pediatric nursing for 7 years, including 2 years in critical care. My credentials stand on their own. What happened at the airport has nothing to do with my qualifications for this job. But it does affect how others might perceive your hiring, Sandra said. We have to be careful about hiring someone who knows a rich person, Claire interrupted, because that seems like a strange disqualification for a job that's supposed to be about merit. The room went silent. Morrison's expression hardened. Dr. Chen looked uncertain. Sandra was writing something in her notes. Claire realized she might have just destroyed any chance she'd had. I apologize, she said quickly. That was inappropriate. I need you to understand that I didn't ask for any special treatment. I didn't use any connections. I applied for this job the same way everyone else did. Whatever relationship people think I have with Damien Cross doesn't exist. We're strangers who happen to be on the same flight. Who offered you a first-class ticket worth several $1,000s, Morrison said flatly, which I would have refused if I'd known who he was. But you didn't refuse. No, because I needed to get to this interview, and he made that possible. I'm not going to apologize for accepting help when it was offered. Dr. Chen exchanged glances with Morrison. Some unspoken conversation happened between them. All right, Dr. Chen said finally. Let's move forward with the actual interview. Claire, can you tell us about a time you had to make a critical decision under pressure? And just like that, they were back on track. Claire answered questions for the next 90 minutes. Clinical scenarios, ethical dilemmas, team dynamics, budget constraints. They threw everything at her, and she answered each question as thoroughly and honestly as she could. She talked about the night she'd had to tell parents their daughter wouldn't make it, the time she'd covered 3 nurses' shifts because half the staff was out with flu, the patient who'd coded in the hallway because the ER was too full. She talked about the reality of working in an underfunded rural hospital where you learn to improvise, adapt, and make impossible decisions with limited resources. By the time they finished, Claire was exhausted. But she'd held her ground. She hadn't fallen apart. "Thank you for your time," Dr. Chen said, standing. "We'll be making our decision by the end of the week. Someone from HR will be in touch." "Thank you for the opportunity." Claire shook hands with all three of them and walked out of the conference room on legs that felt like water. She made it to the elevator before the shaking started. The doors closed. She leaned against the wall and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in her chest for hours. She'd either just nailed it or completely destroyed it. No way to know which. Oh. The elevator opened on the ground floor. Claire walked through the lobby, past the expensive fountain and the cheerful children's artwork, and out into the Los Angeles morning. The sun was bright, too bright after the controlled lighting of the hospital. She blinked against it, disoriented. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mom. "How did it go, honey?" Claire stared at the message. She couldn't answer it yet, couldn't put into words what had just happened. She walked 2 blocks before she found a bench and sat down. What now? She had a return flight tomorrow evening. Until then, she had nowhere to be and almost no money. The gym day pass was good for another 18 hours, which solved the shower problem but nothing else. Food. She needed food. Claire pulled up her banking app. $106 left. The lift had cost her $6. She needed to save at least $50 for food and transportation until she got home. That left $56 for the next 30 hours in Los Angeles. She could do that. She'd done more with less. Her phone rang. Unknown number with a 310 area code. "Hello? Claire Holloway?" A woman's voice, professional. "Speaking." "This is Jennifer Martinez from the HR department at Cedar Pacific. Do you have a moment?" Claire's heart stopped. "Yes. I wanted to follow up on something that came up during your interview this morning. The photograph of you with Damian Cross." "Okay." "We've been getting some calls from board members, questions about the nature of your relationship with him. I need to ask, have you spoken to Mr. Cross since landing in Los Angeles?" "No." "Has he contacted you in any way? Email, text, phone?" "No. Why?" There was a pause. "Because Mr. Cross is currently in the building." Claire stood up from the bench. "What?" "He's here, at Cedar Pacific. He's asking to speak with our chief administrator about the hiring process, specifically about your interview." No, he can't. Tell him not to." "Ms. Holloway, I'm not in a position to tell Damian Cross what to do. I'm calling to give you a heads up that this situation is escalating. If you have any influence with him, now would be the time to use it." The line went dead. Claire was running before she'd consciously decided to move. She made it back to Cedar Pacific in 4 minutes, burst through the front doors, and took the stairs to the administrative floor. A receptionist tried to stop her, but Claire ignored her and pushed through the double doors marked executive offices. She found them in a conference room with glass walls. Damian, still in the same clothes from the flight, standing across from 3 people in expensive suits. His posture was aggressive. They looked defensive. Claire yanked the door open. "What the hell are you doing?" Everyone turned. Damian's expression shifted from anger to surprise. "Claire, outside, now." "I'm in the middle of, I don't care, outside." She grabbed his arm and physically pulled him out of the conference room. One of the administrators started to object, but Claire shot him a look that made him reconsider. She dragged Damian down the hallway, around a corner, into an empty meeting room. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "I heard about the interview, about the photo. How did you met? I have friends on the board. They called me, asked me about our relationship, whether I'd influence the hiring decision. So you decided to show up in person and make it worse? I was trying to help. You're not helping. You're destroying any chance I had." Damian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "They were questioning your integrity, suggesting you'd used connections to get special treatment. I wasn't going to let them. It's not your decision to make. Someone had to defend you. So I can defend myself. I did defend myself in the interview, and I was handling it until you showed up like some white knight and proved their point." "What point?" "That I can't succeed without you. That I need a billionaire to fight my battles. That I'm exactly what they suspected, someone using connections instead of earning it." The words hung in the air between them. Damian's face went pale. "I didn't think—" "No, you didn't. You just assumed I needed saving. Again." That's not, I wasn't trying to. What were you trying to do, Damien? Really? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I was trying to make sure you didn't lose something you deserve because of me. But you made it about you, about your reputation, about your business relationships, not about whether I was actually qualified. That's not fair, isn't it? You came here to protect yourself, to make sure Cedar Pacific knew you hadn't done anything wrong. You weren't thinking about what that would do to me. I was thinking about you the entire time. Then you should have stayed away. Damien looked like she'd slapped him. Claire, I need you to leave, now, before you make this any worse. Let me fix this. You can't. The only thing you can do is go and let me deal with the fallout. I'm not leaving you to. You don't have a choice. This is my career, my life, and you're making it harder by being here. She walked to the door, held it open. Damien didn't move. I'm sorry. I know. I was just trying to help. I know that too. But sometimes help isn't helpful. He walked past her slowly, then stopped in the doorway. For what it's worth, I told them the truth. That we're strangers. That I didn't influence anything. That you earned this on your own merit. Thank you. And I told them they'd be idiots not to hire you. Despite everything, Claire almost smiled. That probably didn't help either. Probably not. He left. Claire stood in the empty meeting room, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway. Then she went to find Sandra Reeves. The HR director was in her office, looking harried. She glanced up when Claire knocked. Ms. Holloway, come in. Claire sat down without being invited. I need to know if I still have a shot at this job. Sandra leaned back in her chair. That's complicated. Make it simple. The board is concerned. Mr. Cross's appearance today didn't help. It created the impression that he's personally invested in your hiring, which raises questions about impropriety. Even though there is no impropriety. Perception matters in healthcare administration. So you're saying I'm out? Sandra didn't answer immediately. She shuffled some papers on her desk, clearly uncomfortable. The interview committee was impressed with you, she said finally. Dr. Chen in particular thought you showed exceptional knowledge and composure. Your answers to the clinical scenarios were some of the best we've heard. But we have other qualified candidates who don't come with complications. Complications I didn't create and can't control. I understand that, but do you? Claire leaned forward. Do you understand what it took for me to get here? I worked doubles for 3 years to save for this flight. I slept in an airport chair because I couldn't afford a hotel. I showered in a gym this morning because that's what I could pay for. And I still showed up to that interview prepared and professional because I want this job more than anything. So when you tell me I'm out because some billionaire decided to buy me a plane ticket and then made a mess trying to fix what he'd broken, I need you to understand that it's not fair and it's not right, and it's not my fault. Sandra was quiet for a long moment. You're right, she said finally. It's not fair. So fix it. I can't override the board. Then convince them. Ms. Holloway, I'm the best candidate you've seen today. You just said so. The committee knows it. Dr. Chen knows it. The only thing standing between me and this job is optics. And if Cedar Pacific is more concerned with optics than with hiring the best people, then maybe I don't want to work here anyway. It was a bluff. She desperately wanted to work here, but she couldn't let Sandra see that. Sandra studied her for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. Dr. Chen, can you come to my office? Yes, now, thank you. 2 minutes later, Rachel Chen arrived. She looked between Claire and Sandra with raised eyebrows. What's going on? Ms. Holloway wants to know if she's still being considered for the position, Sandra said. Dr. Chen sat down. That's up to the board. The board is being ridiculous, Claire said flatly, and you know it. Excuse me? You're letting them disqualify a candidate because she accepted help from someone with money. That's not about ethics. That's about classism. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious problem. If I'd flown here in my own private jet, nobody would question whether I deserved the interview. But because I needed help getting here, suddenly my qualifications don't matter. Your qualifications matter. Then hire me based on them. Not based on who I know or don't know. Not based on what some board members think looks bad. Based on whether I can do the job. The room was silent. Then Dr. Chen smiled. It was small, but genuine. You've got nerve, I'll give you that. I've got skills too, and experience, and the ability to stay calm in emergencies and make hard decisions with limited resources. Isn't that what you need? Dr. Chen looked at Sandra. What do you think? I think she's right, and I think if we pass on her because of this, we're making a mistake. The board doesn't make hiring decisions for the nursing staff. You do. We do. Dr. Chen was quiet for another moment. Then she stood up. Welcome to Cedar Pacific, Ms. Holloway. Assuming your references check out and you pass the background screening, the job is yours. Claire's brain short-circuited. What? You start in 3 weeks. HR will send you the paperwork. We'll help with relocation costs. Not much, but something. And for what it's worth, I hope you tell the board to go to hell if they try to make an issue of this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. This is one of the hardest jobs you'll ever have. The hours are brutal and the stakes are high, and you'll question whether it's worth it at least once a week. I can handle that? Yeah, Dr. Chen said. I think you can. She left. Sandra was smiling now too. Congratulations. Claire couldn't speak, couldn't process what had just happened. She'd done it. Against every odd, every obstacle, every complication, she'd actually done it. There's one condition, Sandra said. Of course there was. Mr. Cross, you need to maintain professional boundaries. No appearances of favoritism or special treatment. If he tries to contact you about hospital business, you refer him to the appropriate department. Understood? Understood. Good. Go celebrate. You earned it. Claire walked out of the hospital in a daze. The sun was still too bright, the traffic still too loud, Los Angeles still too big and overwhelming. But she had a job. She had a future. She pulled out her phone and called her mom. Claire, how did it go? I got it, Mom. I got the job. Her mother's cry of joy was so loud, Claire had to hold the phone away from her ear. Oh, honey, I'm so proud of you. Tell me everything, Claire told her. Most of it, anyway. The interview, the questions, the offer. She left out the parts about Damien, about the photo, about nearly losing everything before she'd even started. Some things her mother didn't need to know. They talked for 20 minutes before her mom had to go. Bridge club on Thursdays, never missed it. Claire hung up feeling lighter than she had in years. Then she realized she had nowhere to go and nothing to do for the next 30 hours until her flight home. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. I heard you got the job. Congratulations. You earned it. D. Claire stared at the message. She should probably ignore it. Maintain professional boundaries like Sandra had said. Instead, she typed back, thank you. And thank you for leaving when I asked. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I'm sorry I made things harder. I know, it's okay. Is it? Claire thought about that. Was it okay? He'd nearly destroyed everything, but he'd also made it possible in the first place. The plane ticket, the chance to get here on time, the emergency on the flight that had proven her skills to everyone watching. Maybe it was all connected. Maybe you couldn't separate the help from the complications. Yeah, she typed. It's okay. I'm glad. If you need anything while you're in LA, I won't, but thanks. She put her phone away before he could respond. She still had the rest of today and tomorrow to fill. No money for hotels or fancy restaurants or tourist attractions. But she had a day pass to a gym, a return flight home, and a job waiting for her in 3 weeks. That was enough. Claire walked until she found a public library. Spent the afternoon reading and charging her phone and using their bathroom. Found a cheap taco place for dinner, 2 tacos and water for $6. Went back to the gym, showered again, and slept for a few hours in one of their quiet rooms that was technically for meditation, but worked just fine for exhausted nurses who'd had the longest day of their lives. Tomorrow she'd go to the airport early, find a quiet gate, sleep in a chair if she had to. It didn't matter. She'd survived worse. And now, finally, things were going to get better. 3 weeks went faster than Claire expected and slower than she could stand. She gave notice at Mercy County Hospital, where her supervisor hugged her and told her she was making a mistake leaving Ohio. She packed her entire life into 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. She said goodbye to her mother, who cried and pretended not to, and made Claire promise to call every Sunday. The apartment in Los Angeles was smaller than the one she'd left behind, and cost twice as much. Studio in a building that had seen better days, 20 minutes from Cedar Pacific by bus. But it was hers, her fresh start, her proof that she'd actually made it out. Her first day at Cedar Pacific was overwhelming in the way all first days were. Orientation, paperwork, ID badges, locker assignments, meeting dozens of people whose names she'd forget by lunch, learning the layout of a hospital 3 times the size of Mercy County. By the end of the first week, Claire had worked 2 12-hour shifts, one 16-hour shift when someone called out sick, and had seen more critical cases than she'd seen in a month back in Ohio. The pace was relentless. The expectations were higher. The resources were better, but the pressure was worse. She loved it. She was good at it too. The other nurses noticed. Dr. Chen noticed. Within 2 weeks, Claire was being assigned the complicated cases, the ones that required quick thinking and steady hands and the ability to stay calm when parents were falling apart. She didn't think about Damien, not much anyway. She saw cross-medical logistics trucks making deliveries, saw their name on supply boxes, but she never asked about him and nobody mentioned him, and that was exactly how it needed to be. Until one Monday morning when she walked into the staff lounge and found Sandra Reeves waiting for her. "Claire, do you have a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" Sandra closed the door behind them. That was never a good sign. "I need to give you a heads up about something. There's a situation developing that might affect you." Claire's stomach sank. "What kind of situation?" "Do you know what a charity gala is?" "Vaguely. Rich people in fancy clothes raising money for things?" "Close enough. Cedar Pacific hosts one every year. Big fundraiser, board members, major donors, community leaders. It's this Saturday." "Okay." "Damien Cross is one of our major donors. He's been invited, and apparently he's been asking questions about whether you'll be there." Claire set down her coffee. "I'm working Saturday." "I know, but the gala committee wants to invite some of our newer staff members. Show them off to the donors. You're on the list." "Tell them no. It's not really optional." "Then make it optional." Sandra sat down across from her. "Claire, I understand why you don't want to go, but this is part of the job. Schmoozing donors, putting on a good face, representing the hospital at community events. It matters." "I'm a nurse, not a PR representative." "You're both, like it or not." "And if I refuse?" "Then you look difficult, ungrateful, like you're not a team player. Is that really how you want to be seen 2 weeks into this job?" Claire wanted to argue, wanted to say this was exactly the kind of thing she'd been afraid of. But Sandra had a point. "Will I have to interact with him?" "With Damien?" "Probably. He's hard to avoid at these things." "Can I bring someone? A date?" Sandra smiled slightly. "You're welcome to, but you don't strike me as someone who has a convenient boyfriend lying around." "No, I don't." "Then you'll handle it like you handle everything else, with professionalism and grace." "I don't feel particularly graceful." "Fake it. That's what the rest of us do." The gala was being held at some hotel in Beverly Hills that Claire had never heard of, but that apparently cost $1,000 a night for a basic room. The invitation said cocktail attire. Claire had to Google what that meant. She spent Thursday evening at a thrift store in Burbank, trying on dresses that other women had worn to other events. Most of them didn't fit. The ones that did were either too fancy or not fancy enough, or made her look like she was trying too hard. She finally found a simple black dress that hit just above the knee. Classic enough not to look dated, plain enough not to draw attention. $35. She paired it with the same black flats from her interview and called it good enough. Saturday arrived too fast. Claire worked her shift until 3, went home and showered, and tried to make herself look like someone who belonged at a charity gala. Hair down for once, minimal makeup, the black dress that looked better than she'd expected. She took the bus to Beverly Hills, watching the neighborhoods get progressively nicer through the window. By the time she arrived, she was surrounded by mansions and luxury cars and people who'd never taken public transportation in their lives. The hotel was ridiculous. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, staff in uniforms that probably cost more than Claire's dress. She checked in at the registration desk, got a name tag that felt like a scarlet letter, and walked into the ballroom. It was exactly what she'd imagined. A few hundred people in expensive clothes holding champagne glasses, talking in clusters. A string quartet played in the corner. Waiters circulated with trays of food that was more art than sustenance. Claire grabbed a glass of water, not champagne, never champagne, and tried to look like she had somewhere to be. She recognized some people from the hospital. Dr. Chen was holding court with a group of older men in suits. Sandra was laughing at something a woman in diamonds had said. Other nurses and doctors scattered throughout, all looking slightly uncomfortable in their formal wear. Claire kept to the edges, making polite conversation when approached, but mostly observing. This was a performance, and she wasn't entirely sure she knew her lines. Then she saw him. Damien was across the room talking to a couple in their 60s. He wore a dark suit that fit perfectly, looking every inch the successful businessman. Oliver wasn't with him, probably home with a babysitter. For a moment, Claire thought she might make it through the evening without having to speak to him. Then he looked up, and their eyes met across the ballroom. He said something to the couple and started walking toward her. Claire considered running, decided that would look worse. Claire. Damien. You look good. Thanks. Awkward silence. A waiter passed by and Damien grabbed 2 glasses of champagne, offered her one. She shook her head, held up her water. Right. You don't drink? No. How's the job? Good. Busy. That's good. Yeah. More silence. This was excruciating. I didn't know you'd be here, Damien said finally. Hospital staff. We're apparently part of the show. You're not a show. He stopped. Sorry, I'm not trying to... I don't know what I'm trying to do. Claire softened slightly. He looked as uncomfortable as she felt. It's okay. This is weird. Very weird. We don't have to talk. I can go... No, don't. I mean, if you want to, that's fine, but I don't want you to feel like you have to avoid me. I was told to maintain professional boundaries. Right, professional. So this is professional. Very professional. Despite herself, Claire almost smiled. You're bad at this. At what? Acting normal. You look like you're at a business negotiation. I'm better at those. I can tell. Damien's expression relaxed a fraction. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. At Cedar Pacific. I heard you're doing great work. Who told you that? I have friends on the board, remember? You're not supposed to be keeping tabs on me. I'm not keeping tabs. I'm just hearing things in the normal course of business. That sounds like keeping tabs. It's general awareness of my work specifically, of the hospital generally. Right. Another silence, but this one was less awkward. How's Oliver? Claire asked because she didn't know what else to say. Damien's whole face changed. He's good, growing too fast, starting first grade in the fall. That's a big transition. Yeah, he's nervous about it. Most kids are. He'll be fine. You sound sure of that. I work with kids all day. They're more resilient than adults think. I hope you're right. A woman in a red dress approached them, all smiles and practiced charm. Damien, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Damien's expression shifted to something polite and distant. Margaret, good to see you. And who's this? Margaret's eyes landed on Claire with the kind of assessment that could strip paint. Claire Holloway. She's a nurse at Cedar Pacific. Claire, this is Margaret Brennan. She's on the hospital board. Ah, yes. You're the one who caused all that fuss, with the photograph. Claire's smile didn't waver. That's me. Well, you certainly stirred things up. We had a whole emergency meeting about it. Very dramatic. I apologize for the inconvenience. Oh, no need to apologize to me. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. If Damien wants to help a pretty girl, who are we to complain? The condescension was so thick Claire could taste it. It wasn't about me being pretty, Claire said evenly. It was about me being bumped from a flight and accepting help from a stranger. Of course, I'm sure that's exactly what it was. Damien's jaw tightened. Margaret. I'm just teasing. No harm meant. Although I must say, you two make quite a picture standing here together. People are already talking. Let them talk, Claire said. Margaret's smile sharpened. Oh, they will, trust me. In this town, scandal is currency. She patted Damien's arm. Do come find me later. We need to discuss the new MRI funding. Then she glided away, leaving awkwardness in her wake. I'm sorry about that, Damien said quietly. Not your fault. She's always like that. Thinks being on the board gives her license to say whatever she wants. Does it? Usually. Claire watched Margaret work the room, all charm and sharp edges. Is everyone here like her? Most of them. Why do you think I usually avoid these things? Then why are you here? Damien was quiet for a moment. Because I heard you might be. Claire's head snapped toward him. Damien, I know. Professional boundaries. I'm not trying to... I just wanted to see how you were doing. Make sure you were okay. I'm fine. I can see that. Then you can stop worrying. That's not how worry works. Before Claire could respond, Dr. Chen appeared at her elbow. Claire, there you are. I want you to meet some people. She glanced at Damien. Mr. Cross, good to see you. Dr. Chen, mind if I steal her? She's not mine to steal. Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow at that, but didn't comment. She guided Claire toward a group of people who turned out to be major donors interested in the pediatric program. Claire spent the next 20 minutes answering questions about her work, trying to sound passionate and professional while her mind kept drifting back to Damien. Because I heard you might be here. What was she supposed to do with that? The evening dragged on. Dinner was served, chicken that cost probably $50 a plate and tasted like cardboard. Speeches were made about the hospital's mission and the importance of community support. A video played showing sick children getting better, designed to tug at heartstrings and open wallets. It worked. By the time the auction started, people were bidding thousands of dollars on golf packages and wine tastings and vacation homes. Claire watched it all with a mixture of fascination and disgust. The amount of money being thrown around casually would have changed her life a year ago. Now it was just entertainment for people who had too much. She slipped out to the balcony for air. The view was stunning, Los Angeles spreading out below, city lights like stars. The air was cooler out here, a relief after the stuffy ballroom. Hiding? She turned. Damien had followed her out. Taking a break, she said. Same thing. He came to stand beside her at the railing, careful to keep distance between them. This isn't your world, is it? He asked. No? Mine neither. Not really. You seem comfortable enough. I've had practice. Doesn't mean I like it. They stood in silence, watching the city. Can I ask you something? Claire said. Sure. Why do you do this? The donations, the galas, all of it. You clearly hate it. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Because I can. Because I have more money than any person needs, and it feels wrong not to use it for something that matters. But you don't have to come to these things. You could just write a check. I could, but then people like Margaret would talk, say, I'm not committed, not engaged, and that affects the business, which affects the donations, which affects the hospitals. It's all connected. So it's about reputation. Partly, also about Oliver. I want him to see that wealth comes with responsibility, that we don't just take, we give back. That's very noble. It's pragmatic. Rich people who forget that tend to raise terrible children. Claire smiled despite herself. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more, I don't know, arrogant, entitled, like Margaret. I used to be, before Emily died, before Oliver. He paused. Grief has a way of putting things in perspective. Emily was your wife? Yeah. What was she like? Damien's expression softened. Smart, funny. Didn't take any of my crap. She came from money too, but she never acted like it mattered. Worked as a teacher in an inner-city school because she wanted to make a difference. She would have hated these galas even more than I do. She sounds amazing. She was. Do you... Claire stopped, not sure she should ask. What? Do you think you'll ever... have you thought about dating again? Yeah. Damien looked out at the city. Not really. Most women I meet are either interested in the money or intimidated by it. And the ones who aren't, well, they're usually already attached or not interested. That's lonely. It is. What about Oliver? Doesn't he need a mother? Yeah, probably. But I'm not going to marry someone just to give him one. He deserves better than that. So you're just going to be alone forever? Not forever, just until... He stopped. Until what? Until I meet someone who sees me as just Damien, not the money, not the company, not the connections. Just me. The way he said it made Claire's chest tight. That's a lot to ask, she said quietly. I know. But not impossible. No? No. They looked at each other. The moment stretched out, filled with things neither of them could say. Then Claire's phone buzzed. Text from Sandra. "Where are you? People are asking." "I should get back inside," Claire said. "Yeah." But neither of them moved. "Damien, I know. Professional boundaries. I'm not trying to complicate things for you." "You're not. I mean, you are, but—" She took a breath. "I'm not interested in your money either, for what it's worth." "I know that. And I'm not intimidated by it." "I know that too." "So what does that make me?" Damien smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him all evening. "Dangerous," Claire laughed. "I've been called worse." She went back inside, spent another hour making small talk and dodging questions about Damien and pretending this was all normal. By the time the event wound down, she was exhausted. She caught the last bus back to her neighborhood, grateful to escape the marble and champagne and people who thought $35 dresses were quaint. Her phone buzzed as she unlocked her apartment door. Text from Damien. "Thank you for coming tonight. It was good to see you." Claire stared at the message. She should probably not respond, maintain boundaries. But she was tired of boundaries. "You too," she typed back. "Tell Oliver I said hi. He'd love that. He still talks about the lady who saved someone on the plane." "I didn't save anyone, just helped." "That's what heroes say." "I'm not a hero." Agree to disagree. Claire smiled at her phone like an idiot. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Claire Holloway?" A woman's voice, tight with stress. "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Sarah Martinez. I'm Damien Cross's assistant. I'm sorry to call so late, but there's been an emergency." Claire's stomach dropped. "What happened? Is Damien okay? Is Oliver—" "Mr. Cross is fine, but his son, Oliver, had a seizure about an hour ago. They're at Cedar Pacific now. Mr. Cross is— He's not handling it well. He asked me to call you." "He asked for me?" "Yes. I know it's late and you probably just got home, but I'll be there in 20 minutes. Claire grabbed her bag and ran. She made it to Cedar Pacific in 15, still wearing the black dress and flats from the gala. She found them in the pediatric ER, Damien pacing like a caged animal while nurses worked on Oliver in the next room. "Damien." He turned. His face was white, his eyes wild with fear. "Claire, thank God. They won't tell me anything. They said he's stable, but they won't let me see him, and I don't know what's happening." "Okay, slow down. Who's his doctor?" "I don't know. Some resident. Young guy. He looked like he was 12. "That's Dr. Patterson. He's good. When did the seizure start?" "At home. Around 9. He was getting ready for bed, and he fell. I didn't know what to do. I called 911, but it felt like forever before they came, and he was just lying there. Has he ever had a seizure before?" "No, never. He's been healthy. He's never—" Damien's voice cracked. "What if something's really wrong? What if—" Claire grabbed his arms, made him look at her. "Stop. Breathe. Oliver is in one of the best pediatric hospitals in California. They know what they're doing. But what if—" "No what ifs. Not yet. First we get information, then we deal with whatever it is. Okay?" Damien nodded, but his hands were shaking. Claire walked to the nurse's station, found the charge nurse, who recognized her. "Hey, Claire. You know the Cross family?" "I know Damien. What's Oliver's status?" "Stable. Seizure lasted about 2 minutes. No fever, no obvious cause. Dr. Patterson ordered a full workup. Blood test, CT scan, EEG. So far, everything looks normal." "Can his father see him?" "Yeah, I'll take him back. Just wanted to get the IV placed first." Oliver was pretty scared. Claire went back to Damien. "He's stable. No fever. They're running tests, but everything looks normal so far. You can see him now." The relief on Damien's face was almost painful to watch. Thank you. The nurse led them to Oliver's room. The kid was lying in a hospital bed that made him look even smaller than he was. An IV in his arm, monitors beeping softly. But he was awake. When he saw his father, his face crumpled. "Dad?" "Hey, buddy, I'm here." Damien sat on the edge of the bed, pulled Oliver into a careful hug. "You scared me." "I'm sorry." "Not your fault, not even a little bit." What happened? Why did I fall down? Your brain just... It got confused for a minute, but the doctors are going to figure out why, okay? Oliver nodded against his father's chest. Then he saw Claire standing in the doorway. I know you. You're the lady from the plane. Claire smiled. That's me. Hi, Oliver. Did I get sick like that other lady? Sort of, but you're going to be fine. Promise? I promise to do everything I can to make sure of it. That seemed to satisfy him. He settled back against the pillows, looking exhausted. Dr. Patterson arrived with test results. Everything looked normal. No structural abnormalities, no infection, no obvious cause. He recommended admitting Oliver overnight for observation and scheduling a follow-up EEG. Sometimes kids just have one seizure and that's it, he explained. No underlying condition, no recurrence. We call them simple febrile seizures, except Oliver didn't have a fever, so we're calling it an isolated incident for now. For now, Damien repeated. What does that mean? It means we watch and wait. If it happens again, we investigate further, but right now, there's no reason to think it will. It wasn't the definitive answer Damien wanted, but it was the best they had. Oliver was moved to a regular room. Damien refused to leave. Claire stayed too, even though her shift didn't start for another 12 hours, and she had no real reason to be there. Around 2 in the morning, Oliver finally fell asleep. Damien sat in the chair beside the bed, holding his son's hand, looking like he'd aged 10 years in one night. You should rest, Claire said quietly. Can't. He's fine. The monitors will alert us if anything changes. I know, but I can't. I need to be awake. In case what? In case he needs me. Claire pulled another chair over and sat down beside him. Then I'll stay awake too. You don't have to do that. I know. They sat in silence, watching Oliver sleep. This is what it's like, Damien said after a while. Every day. The fear that something will happen and I won't be able to fix it. That I'll lose him like I lost Emily. You won't. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise you're not alone in it. Damien looked at her. Why are you here, Claire? Because you asked me to be. That's not a good enough reason. Maybe not, but it's the truth. We barely know each other. I know. This doesn't make sense. A lot of things don't make sense. Damien reached out and took her hand, just held it, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. Claire didn't pull away. They sat like that for a long time. Two people who'd met by accident and kept finding their way back to each other despite every logical reason not to. Oliver slept peacefully, his breathing steady and even. The monitors beeped their reassuring rhythm, and somewhere in that quiet hospital room, something shifted between them that neither could have named but both understood. When the sun came up, painting the room in soft gold light, Claire was still there, and Damien was still holding her hand. Oliver was discharged the next afternoon with instructions to follow up in 2 weeks and strict orders to avoid anything that might trigger another seizure. The doctors still had no explanation for why it had happened, which seemed to terrify Damien more than if they'd found something concrete to treat. Claire walked them out to the parking garage where Damien's driver was waiting with the car. Oliver was chattering about the hospital food. Apparently the mac and cheese had been pretty good for sick people food, and seemed completely unbothered by the whole experience. Kids were like that sometimes, resilient in ways adults forgot how to be. Thank you, Damien said as they reached the car. For last night, for staying. Of course. I mean it. You didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. I wanted to. Oliver climbed into the back seat, already absorbed in some game on a tablet. Damien lingered by the door, clearly wanting to say something but not sure how. Would it be okay if I called you sometime? He asked. Not about work, just to, I don't know, talk. Claire knew she should say no, knew that whatever was happening between them was complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea. But standing there in the parking garage with him looking at her like she was the only solid thing in his world, she couldn't make herself care about complications. Yeah, she said. That would be okay. He called 3 days later. Claire was on her lunch break, eating a sandwich in the staff lounge when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. Unknown numbers were usually spam or administrative calls about schedule changes, but something made her pick up. Hello? Hi. It's Damien. Is this a bad time? No, I'm on break. How's Oliver? Good. No more seizures. He's back to driving me crazy with questions about whether sharks sleep and why clouds don't fall down. Claire smiled. Those are excellent questions. I have no idea how to answer them. Nobody does. That's what Google is for. I've been using it a lot. They talked for 20 minutes about nothing in particular. Oliver's questions, Claire's shifts, a patient she'd had who'd swallowed a quarter and been more excited about the x-ray than worried about the surgery. Easy conversation, the kind that didn't require pretense or performance. When her break ended, she didn't want to hang up. I should get back to work, she said reluctantly. Yeah, me too. Thanks for calling. Thanks for answering. He called again 2 days later. Then 3 days after that. Then it became a regular thing. Phone calls during her lunch breaks or after her shifts, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up with money, but emotionally distant parents. She told him about her mother's diabetes, the guilt of being 3,000 miles away. He admitted he had no idea what he was doing as a father half the time. She admitted she was still surprised every morning when she woke up in Los Angeles. They never talked about what they were doing or what it meant. Never acknowledged that these calls were becoming the best part of both their days. It was easier not to label it. 6 weeks after Oliver's seizure, Damien asked if she wanted to have coffee. Just coffee, he said quickly. Nothing complicated. There's a place near the hospital. We could meet after your shift. Claire hesitated. Phone calls were one thing. Meeting in person felt like crossing a line she wasn't sure she was ready to cross. I don't know if that's a good idea, she said. Why not? Because people will see. People will talk. Let them. Easy for you to say. You're not the one whose job could be affected. Damien was quiet for a moment. You're right. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking about... It's fine. I need to be careful. I understand. But he sounded disappointed, and that disappointment sat in Claire's chest like a stone for the rest of her shift. She was being paranoid. They were two adults having coffee. Nothing wrong with that. Except there was something wrong with it. Because coffee wasn't just coffee when you spent every free moment thinking about the other person. Against her better judgment, Claire called him back that night. The coffee place near the hospital. What's it called? Grind? On Wilshire. What time? Whenever you want. Tomorrow, 5:30. I get off at 5. I'll be there. She almost canceled 3 times before her shift ended. Came up with a dozen excuses. But at 5:20, she found herself walking into Grind anyway. Damien was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of him. He stood when he saw her. I didn't know what you liked, so I got you a latte. But if you want something else, latte's fine. She sat down. The coffee shop was busy but not crowded. Enough people that they blended in, not so many that they couldn't talk. Neutral territory. You look tired, Damien said. Thanks. Every woman loves to hear that. I didn't mean... I just meant you look like you've been working hard. 12-hour shift, 4-year-old with pneumonia, 7-year-old who broke his arm falling off a skateboard, and a teenager who swallowed bleach on a dare. Jesus. Regular Tuesday. How do you do it? See that much pain every day and not burn out? Claire wrapped her hands around the warm cup. I don't know. You just do. Because if you don't, who will? That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. They drank their coffee, watched people come and go. A woman with a laptop typing furiously. A couple arguing quietly in the corner. A group of teenagers laughing too loud about something on someone's phone. This is nice, Damien said. It's coffee. It's nice coffee. You're ridiculous. I've been told. Claire found herself smiling despite her exhaustion. How's Oliver? Still asking impossible questions? Always. This week he wants to know why people die. The smile faded. That's a hard one. Yeah. I tried the whole circle of life thing, but he's 6. He doesn't care about circles. He wants to know why his mom died. What did you say? The truth. That sometimes bodies stop working. That doctors try to fix them, but sometimes they can't. That it's sad and unfair and there's no good reason for it. That's honest. He cried for an hour afterward. Maybe honesty was the wrong choice. No, kids need honesty, even when it hurts. Damien studied her over his coffee cup. You'd be a good mother. Claire nearly choked. Where did that come from? Just an observation. A weird observation. Is it? Yes. We're having coffee. You don't get to make observations about my potential parenting skills. Fair enough. But the comment sat between them, impossible to ignore. I don't want kids, Claire said after a moment. Really? I work with sick kids all day. I see what parents go through. The fear, the helplessness, the way it tears them apart. I don't think I could handle that. But you handle it every day. That's different. They're not mine. So you'd be okay with it as long as you could clock out at the end of the shift? Claire set down her cup harder than she meant to. That's not fair. You're right. I'm sorry. I care about my patients. Just because I don't want my own kids doesn't mean I don't care. I know, I shouldn't have said that. They sat in uncomfortable silence for a few minutes. I didn't always want kids either, Damien said finally. Emily convinced me. Said I'd be a good father. I told her she was crazy. Were you? A good father? Yeah. I don't know, I try. But most days I feel like I'm faking it, pretending I know what I'm doing when really I'm terrified of screwing him up. That's what every parent feels. How do you know? Because every parent tells me that. Usually around 2 in the morning when their kid is sick and they feel helpless. Damien smiled slightly. I was one of those parents last month. Yeah, you were. And you made it better. I just sat with you. That was enough. Their eyes met across the table. Claire felt something shift in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to hope. She looked away first. I should go. Early shift tomorrow. Right, of course. They walked out together. The sun was setting, painting the Los Angeles sky in shades of orange and pink. Traffic rushed past on Wilshire, an endless stream of people going somewhere. Can we do this again? Damien asked. Coffee? Yeah, or dinner, or I don't know. Something. Damien, I know it's complicated. I know there are reasons we shouldn't, but I like talking to you, and I hope, you like talking to me. I do. Then why can't we just... Because it's not just talking anymore. You know it's not. He didn't argue. Couldn't argue. So what do we do? He asked quietly. I don't know. She walked away before he could see the tears in her eyes. For 2 weeks they didn't speak. No phone calls, no texts, no accidental meetings in the hospital hallways. Claire threw herself into work, picking up extra shifts and volunteering for the difficult cases nobody else wanted. It helped. Mostly. Then one Thursday evening, Sarah Martinez showed up at the nurse's station looking for her. Ms. Holloway, do you have a minute? Claire looked up from her charts. Is Oliver okay? He's fine. I'm here on a personal matter. For Mr. Cross. Every nurse within earshot was suddenly very interested in their work, while obviously eavesdropping. Can we talk somewhere private? Sarah asked. They ended up in an empty consultation room. Sarah closed the door and pulled an envelope from her bag. Mr. Cross asked me to give you this. Claire stared at the envelope like it might bite her. What is it? I don't know. He didn't tell me, but he said it was important. He could have just called. He tried. You didn't answer. Because Claire had been avoiding his calls, sending them to voicemail, telling herself it was for the best. I can't accept this, she said. Then don't. But at least read it first. Sarah left the envelope on the table and walked out. Claire sat there for 5 minutes, staring at it. Then she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter and a plane ticket. The letter said, Claire, I know I'm asking too much. I know you have every reason to say no, but my mother is having her 70th birthday party in New York this weekend, and Oliver specifically requested that you come. Not me. Him. He wants the nice lady from the airplane to be there. I told him I'd ask, but I'd understand if you said no. The ticket is yours whether you come or not. No strings attached, I mean that, but I hope you'll come. D. The ticket was first class to JFK, leaving Friday evening. Claire closed her eyes and tried to think rationally. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of, getting pulled deeper into Damien's life, into complications she couldn't control. She should return the ticket and tell him no. Instead, she called her supervisor and requested Friday and Saturday off. The flight to New York felt surreal. 3 months ago, she'd been on this same route, terrified and broke, not knowing what the future held. Now she was flying first class again, This time on purpose, to attend a billionaire's mother's birthday party because a 6-year-old had asked her to come. Her life had gotten very strange. Damien met her at JFK. He was waiting at baggage claim even though she only had a carry-on, looking nervous. "You came." "I came." "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I." They stood there awkwardly while people rushed past them. Finally, Damien smiled. "Thank you, really. Oliver's going to be thrilled." "Where is he?" "With my mother, at her place in Manhattan. Fair warning, she's intense." Define intense. Picture Margaret from the gala, but with actual power and better fashion sense. "Wonderful. If you want to back out, now's your chance." Claire adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "I flew 3,000 miles. I'm not backing out." The drive into Manhattan was quiet. Damien's driver navigated traffic with practiced ease while Claire watched the city pass by outside the window. She'd never been to New York before. It was bigger than she'd imagined, louder, more overwhelming. Damien's mother lived in a penthouse on the Upper East Side. The building had a doorman and an elevator that required a key, the kind of place where Claire's entire Ohio apartment could fit in the foyer. "Ready?" Damien asked as they rode up. "No." "Good. Neither am I." The elevator opened directly into the apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. Everything was white and chrome and expensive. A woman in her early 70s stood in the living room, elegant in a way that suggested she'd never had a casual day in her life. This had to be Damien's mother. "Damien, you're late." Her eyes landed on Claire. "And you brought a guest." "Mother, this is Claire Holloway." "Claire?" "My mother, Victoria Cross." "The nurse." Victoria's tone suggested this was not a compliment. "Nice to meet you," Claire said, extending her hand. Victoria shook it limply. "Oliver has been talking about you non-stop. Apparently you saved someone's life on an airplane." "I helped someone." "It wasn't that dramatic." "He seems to think you're some kind of hero." "Claire!" Oliver came running from another room, threw his arms around her waist. "You came! I told Dad you'd come." Claire hugged him back, surprised by how much she'd missed this kid. "Hey, Oliver. Happy almost birthday to your grandma." "It's not almost, it's tomorrow. We're having a huge party. There's going to be cake this big." He spread his arms wide. "That's pretty big. And presents. So many presents." Victoria cleared her throat. "Oliver, why don't you show Claire where she'll be staying? The guest room on the 3rd floor." "3rd floor." The apartment had 3 floors. Oliver grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward a spiral staircase. Damien followed, carrying her bag. The guest room was bigger than Claire's entire Los Angeles apartment. King bed, private bathroom, a view of the park. "This is insane," Claire whispered. "Welcome to my childhood," Damien said. "How did you turn out even remotely normal?" "Who says I did?" Oliver was already showing her around, pointing out the TV hidden in the wall and the bathroom with heated floors. He seemed completely at ease in this level of luxury, which made sense. This was his grandmother's house. This was normal to him. That thought made Claire sad in ways she couldn't quite articulate. Dinner that night was formal and uncomfortable. Victoria held court at the head of the table, asking Claire pointed questions about her background, her education, her family. Each question felt like a test Claire wasn't sure she was passing. "So you're from Ohio?" Victoria said, making it sound like an exotic disease. "Yes. Small town called Millfield. And your parents?" "Just my mother. My father left when I was young." "I see. And she worked at a factory. Now she's retired." "How nice." It wasn't nice. It was judgment wrapped in politeness. Damien tried to redirect the conversation several times, but Victoria was relentless. By the time dessert arrived, Claire wanted to throw her napkin on the table and leave. Instead, she smiled and answered every question honestly. Because that's what you did when you were a guest, even when your host was being horrible. After dinner, Oliver begged Claire to read him a bedtime story. She gratefully escaped upstairs with him while Damien stayed to talk to his mother. Oliver's room was on the 2nd floor, decorated in a style that tried too hard to be age-appropriate. Sports posters and superhero bedding that looked like they'd been selected by an interior designer rather than a kid. "Do you like my grandma's house?" Oliver asked as he climbed into bed. "It's very nice." "She's kind of mean sometimes." "Oliver, it's okay. Dad says she doesn't mean it. She just talks that way. Your dad's probably right. Do you think she likes you? Claire laughed. I don't think so, buddy. I like you. I like you too. Are you going to marry my dad? Claire nearly dropped the book she'd been holding. What? Dad said you're friends, but I heard Grandma say you're probably his girlfriend. So I thought maybe you'd get married and then you could be my mom. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, heart racing. Oliver, I'm not. Your dad and I aren't. We're just friends. But you could be more than friends, right? That's how it works. First you're friends, then you're boyfriend, girlfriend, then you get married. It's more complicated than that. Why? Because grown-ups make everything complicated. Oliver considered this. That's dumb. Yeah, it kind of is. She read him 3 stories before he fell asleep. His hand curled around hers. When she tried to pull away, he held on tighter, even in sleep. Claire gently extracted her hand and tiptoed out. Damien was waiting in the hallway. How much did you hear? She asked. Enough. I didn't know he thought. I never suggested. I know, he's 6. He sees what he wants to see. What does he want to see? A family, a mom, someone who isn't going to disappear like Emily did. Damien, I told him you were just a friend. I've told him a dozen times, but he doesn't listen. He wants you to be more. And what do you want? The question hung in the air between them. Damien stepped closer. I want whatever you want. If that's friendship, then that's what will be. If that's nothing, then I'll accept that too. But if you want more, if there's any chance you might want more, then I need you to tell me. Because I can't keep pretending this is just casual. Claire's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. This is a bad idea. Probably. Your mother hates me. She hates most people. The hospital would have a field day. Let them. I don't want your money. I know. And I don't want to be Oliver's replacement mother. He needs to hear that from you. What if I screw it all up? Then we'll deal with it, together. Claire looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd been afraid to hope for. Not perfection, not a fairy tale, just a real person with real complications who somehow made her want to try anyway. I'm terrified, she whispered. Me too. I've never done this before. A real relationship. I don't know how. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. What if we can't? Then at least we tried. Damien reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so gentle it made Claire's throat tight. I like you, Claire Holloway. I like you so much it scares me. And I know there are 1,000 reasons this shouldn't work, but I want to try anyway, if you'll let me. Claire thought about all the reasons she should say no. The complications, the risks, the certainty that she'd end up hurt. Then she thought about Oliver's hand in hers, about late-night phone calls that made her laugh, about feeling less alone than she had in years. Okay, she said. Okay? Yeah, let's try. Damien smiled. Then he kissed her, soft and careful, like she was something precious. And for the first time in her life, Claire let herself believe she might be. The morning after the kiss, Claire woke up in the guest room with sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked Central Park and a creeping sense of panic that had nothing to do with the unfamiliar surroundings. She'd kissed Damien Cross. More importantly, she'd agreed to try a relationship with him in his mother's penthouse, while his son slept 2 floors below, dreaming about Claire becoming his new mother. What the hell had she been thinking? Her phone buzzed, text from her actual mother. How's LA? Haven't heard from you in a few days. Claire stared at the message. She hadn't told her mom about Damien, hadn't mentioned the complications or the kiss, or the fact that she was currently in New York for a billionaire's birthday party. Her mother still thought she was in Los Angeles being a responsible nurse with a stable job, which she was, mostly, when she wasn't making questionable decisions about her personal life. Everything's good, Claire typed back. Just busy. Love you? She got dressed and went downstairs, following the smell of coffee. The kitchen was massive, all marble and stainless steel, with a chef preparing breakfast while Victoria sat at the counter reading the New York Times. Good morning, Claire said. Victoria looked up briefly. Coffee's on the left. Gerald makes excellent eggs Benedict if you're interested. Just coffee is fine, thank you. She poured herself a cup and tried to figure out the appropriate protocol for standing in a billionaire's kitchen on a Saturday morning after kissing her son. Damien took Oliver to the park, Victoria said without looking up from her paper. They'll be back in an hour. Oh, okay. Which gives us time to talk. Claire's stomach sank. About? Victoria set down the paper and looked at Claire with eyes that were sharp and assessing. About whatever this is between you and my son. Mrs. Cross, Victoria. And don't insult my intelligence by pretending there's nothing happening. I saw the way he looked at you last night, the way Oliver talks about you. I'm old, not blind. Claire sat down across from her, decided honesty was the only option. We're trying to figure out what this is. And what do you think it is? I don't know yet. Do you love him? The question was so blunt it took Claire's breath away. We just started. I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Victoria studied her for a long moment. You're not like the others. What others? The women who've tried to get close to Damien over the years. The ones who saw dollar signs and opportunities. You're different. I don't want his money. I know. That's what worries me. Claire frowned. I don't understand. Victoria sighed, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. Money is simple, transactional. I understand women who want it, but you want something much more dangerous. You want him and Oliver. You want to be part of this family. I haven't decided anything yet. Haven't you? You flew across the country for a child's request. You're here, in my home, having coffee with me while my son takes his boy to the park. That's not nothing, Claire. No, it's not nothing. So I need to know if you're serious. Because if you're not, if you're going to walk away when things get difficult, I need you to do it now. Before Oliver gets more attached. Before Damien... She stopped, her composure cracking slightly. He loved my daughter-in-law very much. Emily's death nearly destroyed him. The only thing that kept him going was Oliver. If you break his heart, I don't know if he'll recover. Claire felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. I would never intentionally hurt him. Intentions don't matter. Results do. Then I can't promise anything, because I don't know what's going to happen. I care about Damien, I care about Oliver, but I'm also terrified that I'm going to screw this up, that I'm not enough, that this whole thing is a disaster waiting to happen. Good, Claire blinked. Good? Fear means you understand the stakes. It means you're taking this seriously. Victoria picked up her coffee cup. My son is complicated. He has money and power and influence, but underneath all that, he's just a man who's been alone too long, who convinced himself that work and raising Oliver was enough. You've made him believe there might be more. Don't take that away from him unless you're absolutely certain. I'm not certain of anything. Then figure it out, quickly. Because my grandson is already planning your wedding, and while I may seem heartless, I won't stand by and watch that child's heart break again. Before Claire could respond, the elevator dinged. Oliver's laughter echoed through the apartment, followed by Damien's deeper voice. Grandma! Claire! We got bagels! Oliver came running into the kitchen, face flushed from the cold, holding a bag from some famous bagel place Claire had never heard of. Damien followed, looking younger and more relaxed than she'd seen him. You're up, he said, smiling at Claire. Yeah. Your mother and I were just having coffee. Something passed between Damien and Victoria, a silent conversation that Claire couldn't read. Then Victoria stood, smoothed her skirt, and announced she needed to finalize details for tonight's party. Oliver immediately claimed the seat next to Claire. We got you an everything bagel. Dad said that's what people from Ohio eat. Did he now? Is it wrong? We can go back and get a different kind. It's perfect, Oliver. Thank you. They ate bagels while Oliver told her everything he'd seen in the park. Dogs, pigeons, a man doing magic tricks, someone selling art that Oliver thought was weird but cool. Damien watched them with an expression Claire couldn't quite name. Later, while Oliver was occupied with a video game, Damien found Claire in the library. Yes, the penthouse had a library with actual floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. My mother cornered you this morning, he said. How did you know? Because that's what she does. What did she say? That I need to be sure about this. About us. Before Oliver gets more hurt. Damien leaned against the doorframe. She's not wrong. I know. Are you? Sure? Claire closed the book she'd been pretending to read. No, I'm not sure. But I'm here. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. Victoria's birthday party that evening was exactly the kind of event Claire had been dreading. 200 people in formal wear, champagne flowing like water, a string quartet playing in the corner while servers circulated with tiny, expensive food. Claire wore the same black dress from the Cedar Pacific Gala because it was the only formal thing she owned. She felt like an imposter again, but this time Damien stayed by her side, introducing her to people whose names she immediately forgot. This is Claire, she's a pediatric nurse at Cedar Pacific. Not, this is my girlfriend, or this is the woman I'm seeing. Just her name and her profession. Neutral. Safe. Claire appreciated that more than he probably knew. The evening passed in a blur of small talk and forced smiles. Oliver was being watched by one of Victoria's staff members. Apparently 6-year-olds weren't expected to endure 3-hour parties with adults. Around 9, Claire excused herself to check on him. She found Oliver at the third-floor media room watching a movie with his babysitter, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Marie. "How's he doing?" Claire asked. "Perfect angel, as always, though I think he's getting tired." Oliver looked up when he heard Claire's voice. "Are you done with the boring party? Taking a break? Can you stay and watch the movie with me?" Marie smiled. "I can handle things downstairs if you'd like to stay with him." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Victoria won't even notice I'm gone." So Claire kicked off her uncomfortable shoes and curled up on the couch next to Oliver, who immediately leaned against her shoulder. The movie was some animated thing about talking animals that Claire had never seen. "Do you like parties?" Oliver asked during a quiet scene. "Not really." "Me neither. Too many people." "Yeah. Dad doesn't like them either, but he goes anyway. That's what grown-ups do sometimes. Things they don't like because they're supposed to." Oliver was quiet for a moment. "Are you going to stay?" "Stay where, buddy?" "With us. With me and Dad." Claire's chest tightened. "Oliver, I know you and Dad aren't married yet, but you could be, right? That's allowed." "It's more complicated than that." "Everyone says that, but it's not complicated. You like us and we like you. That's all that matters." If only it were that simple. "What if it doesn't work out?" Claire asked quietly. "What if I try and it's not enough? You'd be sad." "I'd be sadder if you didn't try at all." The wisdom in those words, coming from a 6-year-old, made Claire's throat tight. "When did you get so smart?" "I don't know, I just am." They finished the movie in comfortable silence. Oliver fell asleep halfway through, his head heavy on Claire's shoulder. She sat there, not wanting to move and wake him, thinking about everything that had happened since that night at JFK. She'd been so focused on survival back then, on getting to Los Angeles, landing the job, proving she could make it on her own. The idea that she might find something else, someone else, hadn't even occurred to her. But here she was, in a penthouse in Manhattan, with a sleeping child against her shoulder and his father somewhere downstairs, probably being interrogated by society people about business and politics and things that didn't really matter. Marie appeared in the doorway. "How's our boy?" "Out cold." "I can take him to bed if you'd like to rejoin the party." "Actually, would it be okay if I stayed here? I'm not much for parties either." Marie smiled warmly. "I think that's exactly what you should do." An hour later, Damien found them. Oliver was tucked into his bed, and Claire was sitting in the chair beside him, watching him sleep. "The party's winding down," Damien said quietly. "People are leaving." "Good. My mother's been asking where you went." "Tell her I was with Oliver." "I did. She said that was exactly what she expected." Damien sat on the edge of Oliver's bed, brushed hair off his son's forehead with gentle fingers. "He asked me again today if you were going to be his mom," Damien said. "He asked me too." "What did you say?" "That it's complicated, that I'm trying. That's honest. It's all I can offer right now." Damien looked at her across the dim room. "My mother talked to you this morning. She told me. She's protective of you, both of you. She's terrified I'll get hurt again, that Oliver will lose someone else. So am I. Then we're all terrified together." Claire stood up, moved to sit beside him on the bed. "I don't know how to do this, Damien. I've never had a relationship that worked, never had a family that looked like this. I'm going to mess up, probably a lot. So will I. But you have Oliver to think about. If this doesn't work, then we deal with it. Together. As adults who care about each other and want the best for him. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's worth trying. Claire looked at Oliver, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of the grown-up conversations happening around him. He looked so small in the big bed, so vulnerable. I don't want to hurt him, she whispered. Then don't. What if I can't help it? Then we'll help him through it. But Claire, Damien took her hand, you can't live your whole life afraid of causing pain. Sometimes you have to risk it, for the chance at something real. Is that what this is? Real? It's the most real thing I've felt since Emily died. The honesty in those words broke something open in Claire's chest. She leaned her head against his shoulder, felt his arm come around her, and let herself imagine what it might be like to stay. To build something with this man and his son. To stop running from connection because she was afraid it wouldn't last. They flew back to Los Angeles the next afternoon. Oliver slept most of the flight, exhausted from the party and the late night. Claire and Damien sat across the aisle from each other, stealing glances and small smiles, not talking much but not needing to. When they landed at LAX, reality came rushing back. Tomorrow, Claire had a shift at Cedar Pacific. Damien had board meetings. Oliver had school. They had to figure out what this thing between them looked like in real life, not just in airports and penthouses and moments stolen between other obligations. Can I see you this week? Damien asked as they stood at baggage claim. I work Tuesday through Thursday, 12-hour shifts. Friday then? Friday I'm supposed to call my mom. Saturday? Claire smiled. Saturday works. Dinner, something casual. As long as it's not a charity gala. I promise no galas. Just food and conversation. I can handle that. Damien's driver pulled up outside. Before getting in the car, Damien kissed her, quick and soft, but in public where anyone could see. Claire's heart raced, but she didn't pull away. The week that followed was chaos. Claire worked 3 consecutive 12-hour shifts, came home exhausted, and fell into bed without the energy to think about relationships or complications or anything beyond sleep. But Damien texted her every day, nothing elaborate, just small check-ins. How's your shift? Oliver asked if you like dinosaurs. Saw a patient transport today and thought of you. Claire found herself looking forward to those messages more than she wanted to admit. Friday evening, she called her mother like she'd promised. You sound different, her mom said after they talked for a few minutes about nothing important. Different how? Happier, less stressed. Work's been good. It's not just work. What's going on, Claire? And because she'd never been good at lying to her mother, Claire told her everything. The flight from JFK, meeting Damien, the job interview, the complications, Oliver's seizure, the kiss in New York, all of it. Her mother was quiet for a long moment. So you're dating a billionaire, she said finally. I'm trying to date a billionaire. There's a difference. And he has a son. 6 years old, really sweet kid. Claire, I know what you're going to say. That it's too much, too fast, too complicated. Actually, I was going to say good. Claire nearly dropped the phone. What? You've spent your whole life protecting yourself, never letting anyone get too close. I was starting to think you'd end up alone because you were too scared to try. I'm not scared. You are. And that's okay. But honey, sometimes you have to be scared and do it anyway. That's what brave looks like. This doesn't feel brave. It feels terrifying. Same thing, Claire laughed despite herself. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just never listened. They talked for another hour, about Damien, about Oliver, about what it might look like if this actually worked. Her mother made Claire promise to be careful, but encouraged her to keep trying. You deserve to be happy, her mom said before hanging up. Don't forget that. Saturday came. Damien picked her up at 6 in a car that was nice but not ostentatious. Apparently he owned several vehicles of varying levels of wealth display. They went to a small Italian restaurant in Santa Monica, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. This is nice, Claire said. No galas, as promised. Where's Oliver? With my assistant's daughter. They're having a sleepover, building forts and eating too much candy, from what Sarah tells me. He's okay with you going out? He's thrilled. Thinks this is a date. Isn't it? Damien smiled. I wasn't sure you'd call it that. What else would you call it? Dinner between friends? We're past friends, Damien. Yeah, we are. They ordered food, pasta for her, chicken for him, and talked about everything except the heavy things. Oliver's obsession with dinosaurs, Claire's worst patient stories, the time Damien's company accidentally shipped 10,000 surgical gloves to a veterinary clinic instead of a hospital. It was easy, natural, the kind of conversation Claire had imagined having, but never quite managed with anyone else. Can I ask you something? Damien said over dessert. Sure. What do you want, long term? Not with me specifically, just in life. Claire thought about that. Honestly, I don't know. 3 months ago, I just wanted to survive, get the job, pay my bills, not end up back in Ohio feeling like a failure. And now? Now I don't know, more than survival, something that feels like living instead of just existing. That's not an answer. It's the best I've got. Fair enough. What about you? What do you want? Damien set down his fork. I want Oliver to grow up knowing he's loved. I want to build something that lasts beyond my lifetime. And he paused. I want someone to share it with, the good parts and the hard parts. Someone who sees me as just Damien, not the money or the company or any of it. That's a lot to ask. I know, but not impossible. No? No. Their eyes met across the table. Something passed between them that felt like understanding, like possibility. The scandal broke on Monday. Claire was at work when Sandra found her. We need to talk. My office. Now. Claire's stomach dropped. She followed Sandra to the administrative wing, where Dr. Chen was already waiting. What's going on? Claire asked. Sandra pulled up a website on her computer. Some gossip blog Claire had never heard of. The headline read, Billionaire Damien crosses new romance, hospital nurse or calculated connection. Below it were photos. Claire and Damien at the Italian restaurant. Claire at Victoria's birthday party. The old photo from JFK that had caused problems before. The article was brutal. It suggested Claire had targeted Damien deliberately, used her position at Cedar Pacific to get close to him, and was potentially compromising patient care for personal gain. None of it was true. All of it looked terrible. Is any of this accurate? Dr. Chen asked. No, I'm not compromising anything. My relationship with Damien has nothing to do with my work. But you are in a relationship with him. Yes. Claire, Sandra looked pained. You know how this looks. How it looks and what's actually happening are two different things. Not to the board, not to the public. So what are you saying? Dr. Chen and Sandra exchanged glances. We're not saying anything yet, Dr. Chen said carefully. But there are going to be questions, investigations, people looking into whether there's been any conflict of interest. There hasn't been. We believe you, but we have to be sure. Claire felt her carefully built life starting to crack. What do I need to do? For now? Nothing. Keep your head down. Don't talk to reporters. And for the love of everything, stay away from Damien Cross until this blows over. The words hit like a punch. You're telling me I can't see him. We're strongly suggesting it would be in your best interest. That's not fair. It's reality. Claire left the meeting feeling like the world was tilting. She made it through her shift on autopilot, avoiding her coworkers' curious looks and whispered conversations. Her phone buzzed constantly, texts from Damien. I saw the article. I'm sorry. This is my fault. Please call me. She didn't call. Didn't know what to say. That evening, Damien showed up at her apartment. Claire opened the door to find him standing in her hallway, looking wrecked. You didn't answer my calls. I've been working. Can I come in? She let him in because turning him away felt cruel. He stood in her tiny studio apartment, looking out of place among her secondhand furniture and minimal decorations. I'm going to fix this, he said. How? I'll issue a statement, clarify that our relationship has nothing to do with the hospital, that you're not. That'll make it worse. You know it will. Then what do you want me to do? I don't know. The words came out sharper than she intended. I don't know how to fix this, Damien. The hospital is asking questions. My coworkers are gossiping. I'm being investigated for conflicts of interest that don't exist. And it's all because I made the mistake of falling for you. Mistake? Poor word choice. Was it, though? Claire sat down on her couch, suddenly exhausted. I don't know anymore. 3 months ago, my life was simple. Hard, but simple. Now it's complicated and messy, and I don't know if I can handle it. Damien sat beside her. Are you saying you want to end this? I'm saying I don't know what to do. The hospital wants me to stay away from you. My career could be at risk. And for what? A relationship that's barely started? That might not even work out? Is that what you think? That we won't work out? I think the odds aren't in our favor. Since when do you care about odds? You flew across the country on money you didn't have for a job you might not get. You slept in airports and showered in gyms and fought for every opportunity you earned. When did you start playing it safe? When I realized I had something to lose. The admission hung between them. Claire, Damien took her hand. I can't promise this will be easy. I can't promise there won't be more scandals or more complications. But I can promise that you're not alone in this. Whatever happens, we face it together. That's easy to say when you're not the one whose job is at risk. Then I'll make it right. I'll pull my contracts with Cedar Pacific, remove any appearance of impropriety. You do that? In a heartbeat, if it means protecting you. Damien, that's millions of dollars, years of business relationships. I don't care. You should care. Why? It's just money, just business. You're more important. Claire looked at him, really looked at him. At the man who'd bought her a plane ticket expecting nothing in return, who'd defended her to hospital boards and stayed up all night when his son was sick, who was offering to sacrifice business relationships to protect her career. This is crazy, she said quietly. Completely. We barely know each other. I know enough. What if I'm not worth it? You are, even if you don't see it yet. Claire felt tears building behind her eyes. I'm scared. I know. What if it all falls apart? Then we deal with it. But Claire, what if it doesn't? What if this is the beginning of something actually good? She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this could work despite all the evidence to the contrary. Oliver asked me again if I was going to be his mom, Claire said. What did you tell him? That I needed time, that relationships don't work that way. Do they? I don't know. I've never had one that lasted long enough to find out. Damien shifted closer. Then let's find out together. Not because it's easy or because it makes sense, but because when I'm with you, everything feels less impossible. That's a line from a movie. Is it working? Despite everything, Claire laughed. Maybe. Good enough. He kissed her then, slow and soft and full of promise. And Claire let herself believe just for a moment that maybe this could actually work. The investigation at Cedar Pacific took 2 weeks. They interviewed Claire 3 times, reviewed her patient records, examined every interaction she'd had with cross-medical logistics. In the end, they found exactly what Claire had told them. Nothing. No conflicts of interest. No compromised patient care. No evidence of impropriety. The board issued a statement clearing her of any wrongdoing. The gossip blogs moved on to other scandals. Life slowly returned to normal. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Claire and Damien kept seeing each other, but carefully. Dinner at her apartment instead of restaurants. Movies at his place with Oliver. Small moments stolen between work and responsibilities and the constant awareness that people were watching. It wasn't sustainable. They both knew it. 3 months after the scandal, Damien asked Claire to move in with him. They were at his house, a modern thing in the Hollywood Hills that was beautiful and expensive and somehow still felt like a home. Oliver was asleep upstairs. They were sitting on the couch, Claire's feet in Damien's lap, while some movie neither of them was watching played on the TV. I've been thinking, Damien said. Dangerous. About us. About this situation. Okay. It's not working. The hiding, the careful distance, the pretending this is casual when it's not. Claire's stomach clenched. Are you breaking up with me? What? No. The opposite, actually. Then what? Move in with us. You and me and Oliver. Make this official. Claire sat up, heart racing. Damien, before you say no, just listen. You're here half the time anyway. Oliver asks about you constantly. And I'm tired of saying goodnight and watching you leave. I want you here. All the time, if you want that too. That's a huge step. I know. We've only been dating 4 months. I know that too. What about Oliver? What if this doesn't work out and he gets hurt? What if it does work out and we wasted time being scared? Claire pulled her feet back, stood up, paced across the room. This was everything she'd wanted and everything she'd been terrified of. I don't have a lot of stuff, she said finally. Damien smiled. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. She thought about it for 3 days. Called her mother, who said finally. Talked to Sandra, who said it was Claire's life and she should live it. Sat in her tiny studio apartment and tried to imagine what it would be like to leave it behind. In the end, the decision was easier than she expected. She moved in on a Saturday. Most of her belongings fit in Damien's car: clothes, books, a few personal items that had survived multiple moves. He'd cleared out a closet for her, made space in the bathroom, put fresh flowers in what he called your room, even though they both knew she'd be sleeping in his. Oliver helped unpack, asking questions about every item. What's this? Where did you get that? Can I see? By evening, Claire's entire life had been absorbed into theirs. Her coffee mug in the kitchen, her scrubs in the laundry room, her presence in every corner of the house. That night, after Oliver was asleep, Damien found Claire standing on the balcony looking out at the Los Angeles lights. Second thoughts? He asked. No, just thinking. About? A year ago I was in Ohio, broke and desperate, wondering if I'd ever get out. Now I'm here, with you. Living in a house I couldn't have imagined affording, dating a man I met by accident. It's surreal. Regrets? No, just grateful, I think, and terrified. Still? Always. Damien wrapped his arms around her from behind. Good. Fear keeps us honest. Is that what you tell yourself? It's what Emily used to tell me, that if you're not a little scared, you're not doing it right. Claire leaned back against him. She sounds like she was smart. She was. I think she would have liked you. Yeah? Yeah, she always said I needed someone who wouldn't let me get away with my bullshit. I can do that. I know. It's one of my favorite things about you. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city below. Somewhere out there were the people Claire used to be. The broke nurse sleeping in airports, the desperate job applicant showering in gyms, the woman who thought survival was the best she could hope for. She'd come so far, and somehow, impossibly, she'd found this. 6 months later, on a random Tuesday evening, Damien came home from work carrying a small box. Claire was in the kitchen helping Oliver with homework, math problems that made her brain hurt because apparently first grade was harder than she remembered. Dad! Oliver jumped up. You're home early. I am. Can I borrow Claire for a minute? We're doing math. Math can wait. Oliver looked suspicious, but went back to his worksheet. Damien led Claire out to the backyard, where the sun was setting in shades of orange and pink. What's going on? Claire asked. I need to ask you something. Okay. He pulled out the box, opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, perfect. Claire's heart stopped. I know this is fast, Damien said. I know we're still figuring things out, but I also know that every day with you is better than the day before, and I don't want to spend another day wondering if you'll stay. So, Claire Holloway, will you marry me? Claire looked at the ring, at Damien's face, at the house behind them where Oliver was probably watching through the window, even though he'd been told not to. She thought about all the reasons this was crazy, all the ways it could go wrong, all the complications and challenges that would come. Then she thought about the night at JFK when a stranger had offered her a ticket, expecting nothing in return. About the interview that almost didn't happen. About late-night phone calls in hospital rooms and learning to be part of something bigger than herself. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Damien's face split into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. He slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her like they had all the time in the world. Behind them, Oliver cheered from the window. They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at a vineyard in Napa. Claire's mother flew out from Ohio, looking overwhelmed by everything but happy. Victoria was surprisingly gracious, even hugging Claire and saying, "Welcome to the family," like she meant it. Oliver was the ring bearer and took the job so seriously that everyone cried watching him walk down the aisle. Claire wore a simple white dress that wasn't from a thrift store for once. Damien wore a suit and looked nervous in a way she found endearing. When they exchanged vows, Claire promised to love him even when he was being ridiculous. Damien promised to always buy her plane tickets when she needed them. Oliver promised to share his toys, which got a laugh from everyone. That night, at the reception, Claire found herself standing alone for a moment, watching everyone dance and celebrate. Her mother was talking to Victoria, somehow finding common ground. Damien was dancing with Oliver, the kid standing on his father's feet. A year and a half ago, Claire had been sitting in an airport chair, broke and alone, watching her dreams slip away. She'd accepted help from a stranger, and it had changed everything. Not because the help itself was magical, but because she'd been brave enough to accept it, to let someone in, to risk everything for the possibility of something better. Sandra appeared at her elbow. "How does it feel, being married to a billionaire?" "Ask me in a year. Think you'll last that long?" Claire smiled. "Yeah, I think we might." "Good, you deserve it." "Do I? You flew 3,000 miles on money you didn't have and fought for everything you earned. If anyone deserves happiness, it's you." Damien came over, Oliver still in his arms. "Dance with us?" "I'm not much of a dancer." "Neither are we. Come on." So Claire joined them on the dance floor, her husband, her stepson, her new family. They swayed to music that was too slow for a 6-year-old's attention span, and too fast for adults who didn't know the steps. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely right. Later, after the reception wound down and Oliver fell asleep in the car on the way to the hotel, Damien carried him upstairs while Claire followed. They tucked him into bed in the adjoining room, watched him sleep for a moment. "Still scared?" Damien whispered. "Terrified." "Good. Me too. Think we'll figure it out?" "Eventually." They went to their own room. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, looking at the ring on her finger that still felt foreign and perfect. "I never thanked you," she said. "For what?" "The plane ticket. That first one. If you hadn't, you would have found another way. You always do." "Maybe. But I'm glad I didn't have to." Damien sat beside her. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." "That night at JFK, I almost didn't offer you the ticket. I thought about it for 10 minutes, talked myself out of it 3 times. Told myself it wasn't my business, that you probably wouldn't accept anyway." "What changed your mind?" "Oliver. He asked if you were okay, and I realized I wanted to be able to tell him yes. That the world wasn't completely cruel, that sometimes people help each other for no reason. And now? Now I get to tell him every day, because you're here, because you stayed." Claire kissed him, soft and sure. "I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." Outside, Los Angeles stretched out below them, a city of dreamers and strivers and people trying to build something from nothing. Somewhere out there, someone was probably sitting in an airport, broken, scared, wondering if they'd make it. Claire hoped they would. Hoped they'd find their own version of help when they needed it most. Hoped they'd be brave enough to accept it. Because sometimes the most courageous thing you could do was let someone else care, to believe you deserved more than survival, to risk everything for the possibility of actually being happy. She'd learned that lesson in an airport terminal at the lowest point of her life, and she'd spend the rest of her life grateful she had.